now it's recording. Sweet. So yeah, we were just talking about our last podcast episode that we did, reincarnates of God feces. And like, holy shit, do I miss some of that kind of crazy, not crazy, but like really abstract genius that only comes from the mind of Greg. You're just talking about like almost this like mushroom flashbacks that
Yeah, and
inspired it.
well, yeah, freaking. Here's the deal: is like everything back then was like all just some of these like deep ideas because like I mean it might have even been 3 days or 4 days in between my tripping or something, but like I was like reaching into such deep thoughts I couldn't refine them totally, but like
You
some
got
of
the
those
broad
ideas,
strokes out there.
some of those ideas like I could still actually use, like even though it was the most ridiculous comparison, like some things were actually like applicable to real life, which later on I look at that and like I'm like laughing about it because I've read a lot of books since then, learned a lot of other stuff, you know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. Just the title of that episode makes me think of a creation, in a really weird way. That like with God being energy and then us being composed of matter, like this form of matter was never really intended to happen, right? So we kind of like reincarnated out of the shit that God formed, which was basically matter, and it turned into us, and all of a sudden we're kind of like this image of God and stuff. It's kind of weird. It's like if you took a shit and then fucking like it turned into like this like little colony of thing, like the bacteria. We're like the bacteria in God's shit almost.
yeah, I think the point
Kind of fucking fucked up a
that
little
we
bit.
were trying to make with such a humorous concept is that everything goes inside everything. You know, outside, my energy, inside, right? So, like, my decision inside to go for a run will create kinetic energy outside my body in the physical world.
Yeah. But
so,
even
like,
just
as I like get
from a
up,
lens
if I choose
down.
to,
What are you saying? If you choose to what?
If I choose to go for a run right this second, okay, and I head off on the trails and I pass somebody in passing, like if I would have waited 2 more minutes or made another cup of tea or done something else, I wouldn't have passed that person specifically at that time. Also, another thing to think about is like the fact that as you pass them, they can feel the wind on you as you have created this movement of energy that can be felt but not seen as you go by, right? So like,
yeah, and they might be like, "What a jerk running by me." You know? How dare they run? But
well,
run
no,
next to me.
more or less.
Some
That
people
is
see
a
that
path
and they
of
get pissed off.
no, but that's a path of magic, right? Like you don't see the
Yeah,
movement of kinetic force, right? Like you
the
don't
butterfly
understand where I'm going with this right now. I don't think.
Okay, well,
Fucking
what you're saying is like one thing causes the next thing, right? So you're saying you have a thought to go for a run, and the energy of that thought turns into kinetic energy as you're running, and as you're running, the kinetic energy turns into this kind of like mechanical chemical energy that affects the air,
which as the person
which could then affect
so
a
then
thought
when
of somebody else. So I was there. I was just coming from a different spot.
yeah, and there is another aspect that I think you're not totally grasping with that is aside from it just being the fact of the energy is traveling from one object to the next object, it's the whole initial point that it starts with in the mind. It starts with the seed that can't be seen at all.
Yeah, and this is the kind of stuff you've read a lot of books on recently.
So the moment that you decide to do something, that is what's going to depict if that's a decision based on the master of yourself or if that's something you're doing out of the impulse. Just because your body
So like, why do people make decisions, you know?
just because your body tells you something doesn't necessarily mean it's true. My body can tell me I'm hungry when I'm not hungry.
Yeah. It's almost, it reminds me of Star Wars. It's like don't let your eyes deceive you, you know? Don't let your body deceive you. Just hold the ultimate truth in your head and in your heart and let that kind of guide you. Some people are always kind of lost in this pursuit of pleasure where they're always trying to find that release at the end of the week. But while that's still, common and acceptable and totally normal, like there's nothing terribly wrong with it. It puts you into that spiritual cycle of always needing that release from some other memes, instead of finding it through your own power of choice and stuff. You start falling into a cycle.
Well, like, let's look at one of the most natural structures in life, like actual sex, right? Like, so a man and a woman, they get together in a conventional relationship, right?
Okay.
And the man needs to feel some sort of appraisal, some sort of satisfaction from his woman. Like, look at the work that I'm doing. Can you like praise that? And vice versa, the woman needs to, hey, look, I've done this for you and I've done this for you, and I need this kind of satisfaction from you, right? So like those two functions, they go together.
That makes sense.
Right? And when one person gains knowledge, right? You got to share it with the other person. Now, if the other person does not latch onto that same knowledge, two things happen. Either the person thinks that they're better than the other person, so more powerful per se, or they take the opposite.
Arrogance.
Or they take the opposite, their ego, their arrogance. They want
jealousy.
Them to understand, and so they'll try to force them to understand a certain perspective or a certain aspect. When really, this is what I mean about destiny. A person is going to only understand exactly when they're supposed to. When they have all the ingredients that they're supposed to in life from this thing and this thing and this thing, they will then formulate something, which will then maybe help them formulate the next thing or the next thing or the next thing, right? So that's that seed of the path of magic, right? And in the same way, it happens inside the mind. That's how it happens outside the mind. So a decision to go run is all that. It's not just, oh, okay, I'm going to go run, check this out. Oh, you pissed me off in passing. But that's how people react to those things. Like, you're right about that. That would maybe piss somebody off. Or maybe, oh, you splashed me. Or this happened. Or I'm mad.
That's kind of not the point, though. You're right about that.
Lineup at the grocery store,
Yeah.
Like, people get so upset over the silliest things. And like,
even trying to explain something like this to them, trying to say that, okay, where do your thoughts come from, and starting that kind of conversation. People feel like you're attacking their mindset and their beliefs and stuff, and they feel like it's a personal thing, and it's really not. It's more trying to broach
how you avoid
the subject more philosophical than the common mundane day-to-day conversation.
Do you know how you avoid that conflict? Is you simply just only listen until somebody asks advice. Once somebody asks advice and you try to tell them and then they are hostile and stuff, that's a different situation. It's like, you ask me.
But by that mentality, those conversations still won't happen, because you have to wait for them to ask first. You have to start. What I find the most success with is making simple observations that are slightly more spiritual than a normal observation would be. It's like, okay, the sky is blue. It's like, the sky makes me feel, happier today. And it's like, well, why is that? There's more to that. Why does the sky make you feel happier? Is it because it's brighter? It's like, maybe it's actually a cloudy day. And it's like, why the heck are you happier on a cloudy day? It's like, because I don't have to wear sunglasses today. Like, it could be something weird, but then it's like, you could talk about more there, maybe wearing sunglasses. Maybe I don't have the point there, but what I'm trying to say is that the simple observations in life could lead to more in-depth conversations than just straight up saying, okay, I have to explain something to you, or just waiting for somebody to come to you to say,
okay, so here's the deal. You're taking an academic. You're taking an academic approach rather than taking. Listen to me.
First. You use wisdom first, I think.
Listen, you're taking an academic approach rather than taking interlocking approach. Okay, so you have one entity here and you have one entity here. This would be one voodoo monkey. This would be another voodoo monkey. Okay. Yes. And like, I think this would be important to identify. Okay, so like, here's a piece of information I give you, and I'm waiting for this, and then I put this in here, and I'm waiting for this, and I'm waiting for this whole thing to formulate like that, right? Versus this is how you're viewing it. I give you a piece, and you're like, oh, do I Like, you're like, that's more what you're doing with the conversation, and I'm trying to do this thing. Like, I just because I say it doesn't mean you have to believe it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very, very important thing. I
I'm
think
just
a
trying
lot of people
to
don't
get into
understand.
it
You know,
and tell you where I'm
spirituality
actually at.
is your view on that. You know.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to give you.
Well, this
But
is season 2, building your spiritual home. So, I mean, let
yeah,
it begin.
and I've
Let
started
it
really
begin,
doing that. I
my
want to
friend.
get. Hold on a second. Let me show you what I came up with here.
All right, word. My freaking tea is cold again.
I need a microphone for this. So I came up with this stuff. We were talking for a while, right, about the magic and kind of magical things. So I'm like, what? These all kind of fall into categories that are kind of magical. So you see musically at the top there, spiritually, academically, socially, geniusly, and egotistically. Or ego, I spelled it wrong. But
Ego and genius are kind of in the same reign there a little bit.
they're closely tied. A lot of these are very similar or tied together, kind of
Very
ruled
fine,
over by a kind of
fine line
an
between
umbrella
them.
term. Yeah. So I mean, like
Fishing
the connection
line.
between the ego and the genius. I I kind of looked up the definition of ego, right? And it's kind of this. It's like self opinion versus the reality that it actually is. So it's like, oh, I'm such a humble guy, and then you go out and it's not accurate at all, and you're always kind of like, oh, I'll do it because I know how to do it better and stuff like that. And you're always like doing that, then maybe you're not really that humble and you're actually more arrogant and you don't really realize it because you're missing that reality check. But the whole genius thing and how it connects with ego, it's like if you think that you're a genius because you understand more about the world, but you have no way of like bringing that into reality, then you don't get to have the ego of a genius. Like I don't think I'm genius because I can't really explain the same things that you do. I think that you're genius because you explain some things that blow my mind.
Look, okay, I'm gonna stop you right
So
there
the
because
relativity between
hold
that.
your thought, hold your thought. I need to stop you. This is for your fucking moral of your confidence here.
Okay.
Okay, like here's the deal. We are all humans, and you are capable of the things that I am capable of. All as you have to do is unlock the school of thought that leads to that thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what
So
I'm saying. I
no,
know
but
that
there's no
we
such
have the
thing.
same
There's no such
capabilities,
thing as
but
genius versus not genius. You are genius in your own individual ways. I am
yeah,
genius in my own individual ways, and that is placement. That is role. I got one role, you got a role. You can
I
say
was
things
saying,
that I won't understand at times.
you're
That's
you're
as
a
simple as that.
genius. You're a genius of connecting things. I'm a genius of kind of being a conduit to things in some ways. You kind of take all these different things and you say this connects to this, like how you're saying with the seed of the thought going for a run. All of that. That was a lot of connecting things. I'm not the same. I try to connect all these things, so here's the way I do it. I do it on paper. I write it all down. And I say, okay, well, I don't have quite the connections between genius and ego and socially and academically and spiritually and musically,
But
but you could probably
like
go
I
to
mean
that and
that's
be like,
part of that.
well, it's
That's
easy.
part of that. Well, what do you mean? Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, so when you create something that's fucking wicked on guitar, that's like genius. You've connected the spiritual sense, you've gone deep inside your soul, and found something that you were vibing with. You fucking brought it out to the physical world. You manifested an idea. Your ego is making you feel satisfaction, which is what joy is. Your pure joy would be an ego. Pure joy is somewhat
Like
selfish.
self-satisfaction.
Yeah. So like as you're like feeling all those things are all tied together. And then as you write a song, maybe as you emit an emotion, so you've now grabbed onto the spirit of an energy that you are feeling and you've transferred it through your body and now you've allowed it to escape you and go out of you. And now that that's purge through your system, the next thing is like, okay, what's the next big thing? What's the next and what I think that process we call is like harnessing our energy or controlling ourselves. But aside from that, and that being the mastery of our own individual craft and skill in, you know, revolutionary arts of whatever our art is, you know, we have to make it the throne of our life in order to get good at it. And that is mastering your skill. That
I
is
think
mastering your craft.
that's realizing your passion, you know, and kind of making that the true like journey of your life is to master your passion and kind of control it in a way that is spiritual, musical, academic, that you can be social with, that you think is genius and you can, you know, boost your ego with. You know, it doesn't always have to be art, though. I think art kind of is the best for that, and kind of like covering all these bases.
There's such a wide definition of art that has never been decided. That literally the fact that listen to me. No, it hasn't. Look it up. There's literally
That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, I thought you said sure it has. I thought that was what you had said there. But like, anyways, if you look at all the different arts that there are, the art of mastering oneself is like oneself mastering every art that they are passionate about. You know what I mean? Kind of like the art of language is the art of language. The art of gentleness is the art of gentleness. The art of patience is the art of patience. The art of self-control is the art of self-control. Those are all very different things.
Yeah, but it's all the art of your life, art of living as you.
But that's what I'm saying. You got to create the interlocking effect. So it's just like this person's art is this, and this person's art is this. If this person inspires this thing, and this inspires this thing, and this inspires this thing, it becomes this stairway that just climbs itself, which comes to this beautiful, perfect creation over time, you know? Like
multi-layered.
That is placement, because that's understanding not only the kinetic energy of that person running, but that person in passing was supposed to be exactly here, and this person was supposed to be exactly here. That if I would have stayed home another second longer, this person wouldn't have been here when I ran by.
Yeah. And so it's hard to determine. I mean, this is where there's kind of the spiritual debate of was that a plan by a higher power, or is that that's just life, and that's how life is supposed to be, and you just got to accept what life is. It's when people live their life and they realize, oh, okay, well, things didn't exactly go the best for me, still saying that was meant to be that way so that I could learn from it, you know. Or if things did go really well, then it's like, okay, well, that's how it was meant to be because I earned it. And just kind of that practicing acceptance almost.
This is fully like my opinion, and like I'm very strong opinionated, so like this is something that might piss some people off, but like we need to get over this fucking idea that we think we're so fucking special, that we're so fucking grand, that
that's
God
possibly
that couldn't exist, and that darkness couldn't exist. Is there murder? Yes. Okay, you just answered it. It fucking exists. Fucking knock it off. Everybody that doesn't believe in that shit, those are just words used to describe the things that you can't describe. Why do you think you can't describe them? Because you're not using the fucking words meant to describe them, because you're labeling them as religion. Religion and description are two different fucking things. And I am very passionate about that, because so many fucking people are like, oh, that might be real and this might not be real. If I shove a fucking knife in your stomach, are you going to tell me the spirit of death wasn't upon us? Are you going to tell me the spirit of something evil didn't overtake me at that moment, that I gave way to my fucking anger? No, you're not going to tell me that. You know, like, because that's exactly what the fuck happened.
I totally agree.
Like, we got to stop doing this thing where real life is like, I don't know if I believe that. That's not being honest philosophers. That's not being honest with ourselves. To be an honest philosopher, we need to be honest with ourselves, and that is the only way we will find ultimate truth.
Yeah, I think that using the right language really matters too. Instead of saying, "Oh, I don't really believe that," you're kind of playing coy at that point. You could just say, "I don't believe that yet, but I'd like to," you know, and then you can
Yeah,
start
yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually getting to the point.
Yeah. I know that like topic is a loaded one for people because they don't want to really face this idea that there's something beyond us. We want to tend to believe that our ego is in charge of everything, and that's
And I think that's caused by this the extreme challenge that a lot of us face in just living life normally. This whole kind of like adulting culture that's arisen. It's so hard to be adult and take care of myself and go to work. And there is a lot of societal factors that influence that. It's real. It exists. A lot of people have that. And I've struggled too. But at the same time, I don't make the same excuses. And once I get into the that rhythm, it's like, yes, I've got this. It's like, I'm still looking for challenges. I'm not going to settle for, okay, well, I can handle this basic life.
yeah, you
I'm
want to
always going to
handle
be
the
looking for
next thing.
something. Yeah.
Just
And
like
that doesn't mean that
guitar.
I'm not
Like
satisfied.
two
And
notes
that
is
doesn't
not
mean that
fun.
it's not enough. It means that I want to continue growing.
Yeah. Two
That's all
notes
it
isn't
means.
fun. A whole string of notes are fun. Like you go
Yeah.
once you start putting together more
But
complex
you
stuff,
master
you
one
step
note at
back.
a time. You master one
One
note at a
note at a
time.
time.
But
Yeah,
don't stay
one
on
note at
one
a
note
time.
always, because the one note song gets really freaking boring.
Yeah, but that's exactly what growth is, right? That's what we're saying is you don't stay on one note. When people say, okay, I'm going to take the stance of atheist my life because I know this, that's
Yeah.
mastering a note to say, I've mastered this one note and I'm not moving on from this one note. That's exactly what they're doing. I've been through every belief in my mind. That's part of the process. I've been through, I thought this and I thought that, and I didn't believe this and I didn't believe that. And then I learned what believing was. I'm so far past the believing thought that I'm like, if you don't believe, you're just an idiot. There's so much stuff around us in this world that it was even biblical that God was like, it's in
You don't believe
everything
that
so
you're an
that men
idiot.
are without excuse by the end of their life. So fucking deal with it. Like, but it's actually a younger
Oh my
thing.
god.
It's actually like a 20s thing and like a younger age thing for us to be like, yeah, I'm not sure if that's really real. And then some people that just never really moved on from that note. But then like most people are like, yeah, no, you're fucked. They're like, this is real. It's all real. It's like, here, let me show you. Like, fucking, can you see the thought of murder in my head? Like I said, no, you can't. But if I do it, it happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
That's so fucked up. Like even the idea of like people murdering each other, that happens in the world. Like you were saying, that's actually a thing that exists. It's scary. And some
But
people
okay,
get
yeah,
feel
that
very safe, and like I'm glad for that.
that
But that's
exists.
because we live here, and this is a very safe place to be. And like I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Remembrance Day came and went recently, and there was that whole thing happening with Don Cherry. And I was like, I watched the video of him, and I didn't get it at all. There was a lot of people probably sitting there waiting, kind of vulture like, waiting for him to do anything that they could jump on. And then as soon as he said that, they're like, "You're fired." And he started a podcast now. It's called The Grapevine. He had the radio show called The Grapevine, and he's doing it with his son and his grandson. Good old hockey podcast. That's pretty cool. I even seen a video of a Sikh, I think a Sikh or a Muslim, I'm not sure, had a turban, defending Don Cherry, saying that he's right. We need to be grateful for the troops that fought for the freedom and stuff, and we need to wear poppies. And he was kind of saying that to the rest of the immigrants that he had on his feet or whatever, and it kind of blew up, went viral. But like, why is there so much censorship and stuff? Why can't people be themselves? The point of Don Cherry going really shows that he had integrity the whole time, and he was always honest.
I
And
think,
I think that's a really good kind of role model to be. And
well,
maybe he was
okay, I
old
think this,
fashioned, and had a lot of traditional ideas, but he still focused on what was important.
let me use an example, okay? Because this is what I think is happening here with like a lot of life nowadays, right? In situations like that precisely and a lot of disagreements, okay? is like you get this idea, okay, that because I learned something, that I am never going to make that mistake again. Now that's perfection. So that when somebody else makes that mistake, I jump them. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? That's not a loving way to live life. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's the way that fucking people live life. You lied to me. I can't forgive you. Huh? Yeah, and you've never lied to anybody before?
That's
Shut your
probably why
fucking
they're
mouth.
like that. They probably lied to somebody, and then it had that happen, and then like, okay, now I have to reciprocate that. You know, you don't have to. You don't have to. I remember
But
you saying
aside,
this one thing on a Snoop Dogg post where some kid hits I was gonna say a retarded kid, but like mentally challenged kid, uh, and because he was making fun of his mom or something, and it's like there was a lot of people on the channel or the page that were defending him. Is like, serves him right, you know, he was making fun of his mom, he was asking for it and stuff, but you took the stance that was he could have apologized and forgave him. I'm sorry you are this way, I forgive you for being this way, you know, taking that more stance of forgiveness. And it pissed a lot of people off, right? But some people
it,
actually, it made a difference to, it made a real difference to, and it made a difference to me for sure
I had
when you
two.
told me
I
that
had
story.
two. I had two Muslims message me that day and tell me that they had became Christians that day.
So you like full on converted people. I forgot that detail, but like just that,
Yeah,
the whole
I
forgiveness
had the
concept.
guy message me. The guy
Huge.
messaged me. One of the guys that was arguing with me, and he was like, "I stand corrected as a Muslim," and he's like, "I'm grateful for you in this world and people like you." And I had another guy named Zeno from Africa. I've had a couple of video chats with him actually. Talked to him here and there. I haven't talked to him much. You know, shout out to him if you ever see this. I know I talked to him on Instagram and stuff, so maybe I'll fire him a message so he can check out this podcast. But you know, yeah, another guy in Africa, and actually one of Snoop Dogg's like actual like crew members. I'm not sure which handler or who it was. Messaged me personally and explained to me that Snoop Dogg did not intend to really spark that kind of a reaction. You know, things happen, people think ways, we have moments in our life where we think something's a good idea, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you know, I was willing to look the other way on that because like I was upset as a fan too because I followed Snoop Dogg for a lot of my life. You know, like he seemed to have had quite a bearing. It was the very first rap song I ever listened to. Not only that, the whole like chilling in Regina with Dave and Snoop Dogg thing at the concert and whatever happened that night. And fucking, which I showed you the pictures of Dave and Snoop Dogg in the Riders jersey, right? Like fucking just hanging out.
That's legendary.
Yeah. So like I was upset about this. Like I was like quite heavily upset. But
Yeah.
I got in 2 days, in 48 hours, I had like I think 525 likes and over 327 replies and like another 400 comments or something. But like 6 people or 7 people, I think it was less than 10, agreed. Other than
Out of
whoever would
500.
have, other than, well, no, 525 people liked it, so I assume they would agree. But like other than that, the people in the conversation that messaged me, 10 people agreed. Out of over, I think I read 1,000 posts out of 10,000 posts before I even made a comment to begin with.
Wow.
To
Just
determine
shows
that
how
people were
relevant
fucked.
and you know how much that matters to a lot of people, that kind of debate of like where should we stand on this, you know, because there's
Yeah.
been a real huge revamping of the whole kind of bully culture and what to do if you're being bullied or whatever, and usually it's walk away and get help
And
with
and
somebody
and a
else,
week and a
and
week
then the discipline
later,
comes,
but a week later, I couldn't help but notice this. I don't know
and then
if
the
this is
forgiveness comes.
coincidence because things happen in sequence, right? They happen for a reason. So I don't know if this was probably actually on its way already, but the way it happened was kind of cool. But the fact that Snoop Dogg's Bible of Love album came out at the end of that week, and then he won a Grammy Award for a gospel song.
Yeah. I totally forgot that you did that. I actually watched that video, and it's so different, you know.
Exactly at the end of the same week that big debate blew up all over his.
So he'd been working on that for a long time, right? And then he posts this Instagram post. Maybe he wasn't sure what to think of it. He's like, here's something I'm gonna get a lot of responses on, and maybe I'll figure out what I want to, maybe I'll see from the people what the best way to think about this is, and you actually got a message from one of the handlers, so that was like,
yeah,
he didn't mean for it to be like that, and he obviously like learned something from your reply based on what response you got.
So that was how I felt, but like, I mean, who knows? And like, I mean,
it probably
ego
didn't
doesn't matter. Like,
what he kind of like
and
ended up doing. I'm sure that the album would have released the same anyway, but maybe future mindset is affected a bit. But what's your point saying?
I think my point is by just choosing to do good, we put so much emphasis on worshiping the even people like Snoop Dogg. We put emphasis on those things, right? And my point is simply just to take a stance. Like, I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get. When I made the comment and I got one reply and I replied to that one reply, I didn't think I was going to be sitting for the next freaking 40 hours replying to people. Like, I didn't think that was going to happen either, but like by just simply taking a stance of good and that path of good magic having its travel, it eventually reached what was the source of that, and the source of that then sent back out its vibration in that. And so it just goes to show you that even my simple mind in a basement is the exact same mind of what we idolize. Like, those things are not different. Like, and that's what stars have been trying to communicate to people. Like, we're people like you. Stop worshiping us. Like, give us our space, allow us to go to the bathroom, kind of thing. That's what they're saying, They're like, we just made some music. We didn't plan for this. This just kind of fucking happened. Back the fuck off. Let me do my thing. Just because I can afford this doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. Like, that's all that they're fucking trying to say, really. And then you get all this judgment and all this other stuff that's happening. But what people don't realize is these people have overcome their demons to get to the points that we are. And so, like, in the path of believing is the smallest part. This is the very first seed that you have to pass, because before you have to start believing in demons before you can fight your demons. And once you fight your demons and you grow to this next level, then you grow to this next level and you master what's called being an adult. That is life. I
think it's more about mastering being human.
Yeah, but being an adult,
being your own human, being an individual
Small human is this. Being an adult is what we call as responsibility, but adult is a powerful word. It really is. Adult implies that we're old enough for sex. Adultress would imply they're an adultress. You see what I'm saying? Like, adult is a very strong word. And adult is the word used to describe the link between human and growth.
I'm thinking about when I was a kid and I was hearing about what is adult and stuff, and it being this very like restricted, taboo. It's the section of the library that's closed off. It's strip clubs and stuff like that. It's the stuff that you don't really get to go to, and that you always wonder about when you're a kid. And then when you're an adult, you're like, oh, it's that. Okay, well, do I need that in my life? Maybe not. But whatever it is, like, this reminds me of what you were saying earlier, how everything happens how it needs to happen. Like, you posting on that page, that needed to happen, and it's led to this moment now and allowed us to kind of bring this up and talk about it and form our philosophies. And
you know what? If you go on some of my Instagram posts, you'll even see Zeno posts on there, and he'll say something, put a little comment, or he'll like. Yeah, I think a couple of our posts he did that on, actually. So, like, that was some guy in Africa. So I met that day, I like, and another guy, another one of the followers on Instagram. I wish I had his handle. Should go look at it and see, but
I'm looking up your Instagram right now. Honestly, I'm on it right now.
yeah, another one of these guys, Fiddler something, I think was his handle. I can't remember if he was from Europe or Switzerland, somewhere in the UK. But then there was a couple guys I met in the UK that day, guy from Africa. Yeah, no, it was quite an awesome day that was. And so like even though
Julian
that
the
there's
Fiddler?
yeah, I think him. I can't remember where he was from.
Never let the world bring you down, for every sunset is a sunrise. That's cool. You know, as above, so below kind of thing.
Anyways,
Reminds
so
me of that whole like two-way street.
shout out to that guy. He was solid. He messaged me and like kind of had my back in that conversation. And he's like, yeah, we have some different opinions about some things, but he's like, we mostly both agree that like good is good. I'm like, yeah, oh, word. Yeah, and shout out to that Zeno guy. I know I haven't talked to you much, buddy. Really, like, I know I get busy and I kind of get in my ways, and all my deep thoughts and trains that I go retreat to that closet over there for, so that would be why I haven't messaged you. I hope you get to see this podcast, by the way. So, yeah, I'll fire you a message on Instagram later.
That's really cool that you're kind of connecting with your followers like that. I mean, here's Zeno. I get people liking my posts and stuff, but it doesn't really spark conversation. But your stuff does. Looks like this guy's doing pretty well.
Yeah, he's a businessman. I think he was selling shoes last I talked to him, but I don't think he strictly did that. I think he has a few different areas of business. But anyways, because of the time difference too, I don't always get to talk to him. But you know what? That guy is like one awesome dude, I have to say. Like and he approached me. He like, I wish more people were like that. And I was like, that's cool, man.
Here's a picture of him.
Oh, cool.
And it's like a self-appreciation post, right? But it's fitting. He's at a party for him, and it says, "I love me," and that's important. You gotta remember to love yourself in life.
It is.
Some people forget to.
And do you know what I think? I think one of the biggest religious barriers between that idea and religion, old school traditional religion, is the fact that, if I love myself, I'm sinning. Well, no, since you became aware of the fact that you have a self, now it's your job to understand those things. And part of loving yourself is creating beliefs that make you feel good about yourself. Everything good comes from above, right? Everything divine is good. It's all person. Good.
If you look at yourself in the third person, and you can say that, from this kind of detached view of myself, I love myself. Looking at everything that you do, all the bad habits, all the good habits, all the negativity that you put out, all the positivity that you put out, all of it combined, saying that I love myself, and not having it always as a first person thing. Because when it's always first person, that's the realm of the constant,
and jealousy
greed and abuse of things. Yeah. All of that, it's that first person. I need to feel good all the time. But if you're more about the third person,
greed always leads to pleasures. You notice how you link those, like, even just naturally in a thought without much thought, like
that shows how like natural it is for me, and it's a challenge for me to undo that kind of bad habits from even from growing up that have formed me into the adult that I am today. I've formed bad habits when I was a teenager and a kid. I definitely formed bad habits back then that are still habits today. And those are so like deeply rooted in like identity that it's a huge challenge to undo that kind of stuff. But like if you want to love yourself from the third person, then it's necessary.
To do the appropriate growth, right? Now I want you to think about this. Like if you just like grab a rough rock, if you just take a rough rock and that rock represents your soul, your all being of you specifically, not all of you, but
the
of
energy.
You. Yeah. Now if that rock represents that, and an artist represents God, and the artist chiseling that rock represents God, eventually when it's this beautiful polished quarry stone, and it just takes this geometrical shape, and it's just this beautiful fine piece of something. You see what I mean? It's refined. It's growth. Like, and that's exactly what that is, that path, and then like undoing that little thing and then just fixing that. And then just, and that's the process of growth. But like a lot of people, they want to do this, and then they just like kind of get stuck here. They don't know how to pull themselves out, or they think they pull themselves out and they end up doing this, or they just,
It's like identifying as the flaws instead of the the better parts of things. It's like, okay, well, here's something that I can't change about myself, so I'm going to use that to build from. And maybe it's not a positive thing, so it kind of leads to more negative things. But there's I don't know exactly what I'm like specifically trying to talk about here. There's some people that I know that I would try to kind of influence more to go on different paths and stuff, but I don't want to tell them who to be, because ultimately you decide who you are.
Let me give some really good insight, and that's going to go towards your building your home and maybe other people that are building a spiritual home. Okay? So your path is your path. No matter what, even when you think that your path has led you to something that you can't possibly do that, I think you should do that, because that thing is going to teach you, and that next thing is going to teach you. And if it's wrong, it's going to make itself evident, and you are going to know it's wrong, and you will stop it. There will be no question about that. So to have enough belief in yourself to know those things, it's very important for people to be interested in what they're curious about, so that they can learn the lessons that they need to learn in life. You got to get off the bench to play the game. You can't have an opinion just based off a religion that you're hand fed, or just based off a philosophy that you're given. You need to actually grow, and in order to do that, you need to stand up and say, well, I guess I'm interested in witchcraft. Let's check that out. I guess I'm interested in whatever this is, a secret society. Let's go check that out. I guess I'm interested in Buddhism. Let's check that out. I guess, and so on. And
like even Christianity, a lot of people hear it. Okay, well, what they think that the God is a guy in a robe standing in the clouds. Is that really what they believe? Why not go and find out? What is it?
Yeah, and
what is it for real? Like reading the Bible.
A lot of people be surprised, because you know what? I know some really good stand-up Christians that blow my mind. So
that's impressive, because you blow my mind all the time. So if somebody's blowing your mind, then they really know how to blow minds. But if I was to go to them and I was to talk to them, maybe they wouldn't be able to blow my mind.
Job.
Maybe it's like a rock, paper, scissors.
Episode 8 or 9, mind job.
Yeah, I think it's episode 9.
The mind job of God.
The mind job.
The mind job. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
I love how that happens. See, everything happens for a reason. Like, you always have these buildups of things that just happen to go together. That's what I mean. The interlock. You don't want to fucking not allow it to interlock. You want to relax and make your vibration. Remember, you're vibrating as you're interlocking. Everybody's got vibrations. And so it's important to steady those vibrations so that the vibrations can match frequencies and interlock. Hence,
this reminds me of electricity. Because there's all these sine waves, right? And it's like, okay, well, there's constructive and destructive interference if you put them, in a certain way. So you got to like shift the phase angle.
Resistance makes a nicer sound.
Yeah, I mean, if we get the right phase angle, we're on the right angle to each other, then it fits together, and we become this more harmonic, resonant, thing. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, and as you're refining your sound, you're always making it better, always tweaking that one little thing. And, it's that same movement. It's that exact same process. But look at that. See, that is evident. So the seed of life is there. The seed of life is living in that thing. And that creates a spirit that's attractive and that you want to navigate to. And that is a fact. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Just because you see a string and you see the amp, you think, well, that's a physical thing. No, the sound, you don't see shit.
That's true. The sound is all energy.
Like, dude, one night I was playing and like, I don't care what people believe. Like, I'm pretty open about this stuff. I was playing and I'm going ham. And like when we were playing the other day, when I get into my mode, sometimes I can just like randomly just have this little pocket of like something awesome. I was doing that by myself. I had this pocket of something awesome and I was so focused. And I'm like, what does that sound like? And I thought to myself, I'm like, that sounds like demons like brawling in hell almost, but like it sounds good almost. And then all of a sudden I hear a scream that was high pitched and I was playing the same notes as I was the whole time. And then all of a sudden I hear this like through my fucking amp and I'm like, what the fuck? And it wasn't quite like that, but it was right high pitched. Did not make any sense. It wasn't even a note I think I have on my guitar. Like,
it's freaky.
Yeah, and it felt like, and I got like these goosebumps and this vibe, and it was like something that like come over me, and I was like, well, that invoked the spirits, all right.
Yeah.
But dude, no, this is what I mean, the seed of life and understanding seeds. Like, Sound Dome was born out of that. Then I had this image in my head. That was where I got this idea to Sound Dome, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna message Taylor after seeing this thing and doing this thing, and
that's where Sound Dome came from. You never told me that story, that you heard this fucking demon scream happen. Like, holy fuck.
So Sound Dome is actually dome is demon with no N in it and the letters rearranged.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you like decipher that.
And if you check this out, and what I love about it, because the D's would be doubled up, it kind of looks like Sodom. But like if the D's would double up, you drop the D tuning. So you drop the D, drop the devil tuning. Yeah.
It's clever.
And it's Sound Dome, yeah. Which is this big generated thing of sound demons that you feel all these things inside yourself and you bring them to the light and sound and whatever sound is pleasing to the deepest parts of the soul. And as that plays an intricate, beautiful music and just never happens again.
Yeah. That reminds me of this one dream I had. I'm thinking about Jesus and demons now. And how this like Sound Dome could be this kind of almost energy field that gets created, almost like an aura of just the sound and the kind of the emotions and the vibing that happens within it. I had this dream.
That's what I was imagining.
And it keeps the demons out from entering it, because you're dealing with those kind of the thoughts and emotions that come with life, and you're putting it out there into the world. It's like having a journal, right? A lot of like therapists and stuff will tell you, okay, start taking a journal and writing down all these thoughts and stuff. And I had problems with like time management. So basically it was like, okay, write down what's keeping you from doing it right, and then keep track of your progress. And it makes a big difference once you get it down there. And if you're having these kind of like anxiety thoughts and stuff, writing it down, saying it back to yourself, is that really a rational thing to think? You can kind of like recondition it at the way that you think and the way that you live your life through these kind of practices, through getting it out into the world. And that's why this like mental health conversation day happens, to actually get it out there, because people hold it inside. They're like, this is my way to bear. And it's like, okay, well, that's true, but like you can also let it out.
I want to say something important when you're fighting your demons like that, right? Like, anxiety is a demon, and it's one a lot of people have, and it is a serious thing. I'm not saying it's not. And like, that's one thing that like somebody, in order to beat it, the best thing to do is to probably just be like, I don't have anxiety. Not to lie to yourself, but not to acknowledge it at all. Pretend it doesn't exist. Don't go, I'm going to go to the mall. Oh, yeah, but I have anxiety. Go, I'm going to go to the mall. And even though you know that inside, don't say the next part. Keep it to yourself. Let it boil and steam and still go to the mall. And sooner or later, what you find is you start to pull out of that depression, out of those anxieties, out of those little like quirky things,
That makes sense. You were saying that before, the power of suggestion. The more that you believe it's going to become true, the more that you actually start making it true. It happens all the time. You know, it's a way of like living in the uncomfortable zone. So I think about running again, where at first I was like, I can only run maybe 400, 800 meters, like I don't know, a couple blocks, you know, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm past the point where I thought I would stop. Like I should probably just stop now. Like I'm probably tired, but it's like maybe I should just lean into it and keep going into that position. And then how long can I keep going? You know, are my legs gonna fail, or am I gonna like stop breathing? Like what's gonna happen? What's the worst that could happen? You
Yeah,
keep
and
going.
that's a
It's
thought
like,
I think
damn,
part
I
of
blew my
growing
mind.
up involves, right? Because like a lot of us are like have this idea early on in life we're scared of dying. That's a young thought. Like we're always scared of those kinds of things. And as you get older, you're like, okay, well, is this gonna kill me or does this kill me? And it's this weird thought because like the ultimate, like, yeah, it's gonna kill you. It might not be now, it might be later, but one day, something. Yeah. You know,
Living
like
life. It's
you're
weird that
living,
like being
you're
born.
living, so you gotta go sometime, you know,
Yeah,
like,
the
and
very
but like
fact
we're
that you're
scared.
born means that one day you will eventually die. It's kind of sad, or maybe not sad, but like macabre, maybe like
You know,
kind of
50
horrific.
Cent,
But
50 Cent's movie,
there
Get
could be
Rich or
a
Die
lot of
Trying, that's
what?
on Netflix right now. 50 Cent's movie, Get Rich or Die Trying. It's on Netflix right now. It was an older movie. I used to watch it, but there's a scene in there where she says, you know, that's all a mother knows. That's all any mother knows is like if it comes down to it, there's a knife in the drawer. And like honestly, and she's like, you're a protector of a child who will one day die. Yeah. And that is true. That is true to its core. And moms everywhere should understand that. Stop babying your kids so that they don't have the abilities and skills they need to be warriors and what they need to succeed in life, because like just because you give them money and give them this thing doesn't give them those skills. Those skills
True.
are like you need skills in life, you know? And like, yeah, they're gonna die one day. Let them play. Let them break their leg. Let them break a finger. Let them run about. Like, stop babying them. They're entities. They got a plan. Somebody's taking care of them. Don't worry. And if they're supposed to die, that's what will happen. And when it does, look to why it happened. Don't blame yourself for it happening. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the difference between my stepmom and my biological mom, but
Oh, word.
I mean, I thought at one point one of them was more about having these like ego skills, whereas the other one was more about having real world skills. But it kind of just turned me to a different point of people identifying as their ego and that kind of more of the anxiety thing again, where they'd be more afraid of people killing their ego than actually like their actual bodies being hurt. I mean, I remember Arby Marcus talking about this thing of saying like the ego is very fragile. It can be destroyed very easily, and it can really hurt. But it's the ego's not your heart. The heart won't die. The heart's not gonna. The heart is not fragile. The heart is the hardest working thing in your entire body. Your heart is always pumping. You know, it's the strongest muscle you have. So why do people think that their heart gets broken when their ego is actually what's shattered? It's a matter of people knowing what things actually are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so like, so being able to group it into heart, that's somebody wants to avoid their feelings. Okay, so all my feelings are in my heart, and I'm just gonna call that my heart. And so it's just like when I feel a feeling, oh, my heart. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of people that take that stance to life actually die of heart attacks.
Wouldn't be
That would
surprising
not,
because like the
that would,
mental connection, like the
yeah.
between your brain and your heart, and all of a sudden, okay,
That's
something
that
something
pathway
terrible
conflict.
happened, and your heart's like, what happened? What happened? And your body's like, there's nothing dangerous at all, and then you just, I don't know what to do, and you have a stroke. It's messed up.
Yeah, so like, I mean,
Or a
one
heart
thing that
attack.
I've
I
been
don't know.
challenged with is just like, I'm gonna go when I'm gonna go. So I've been battling with my health issues. Sometimes I get a little bit scared and I'm like, no, no, don't be scared because it's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. And then plus, if you think you're healthy and you tell yourself these things, you have way better chance of making it. So just freaking put it behind you and don't see it no more.
That's the fucking warrior mindset. That's you gotta fight it. You gotta just keep being you viciously, tenaciously, be yourself. even
And
if you
I
get
know
sick.
it works. I bled for 4 months every day. I woke up and I spit blood into a sink every day for 4 months, and I still will cough and spit blood here and there. But when my mind is only weak, but when my mind is strong, I will wake up and I'm like, nothing's wrong. And I could feel my airways like healing themselves, and like all this shit that you're told that you can't defeat, you can defeat it. It is beatable. It is beatable. I'm doing pretty good for a guy who's got some like colon and some cancer and some fucking other shit going on with me. But I'm doing good. I'm standing here. I'm still fighting. You know, I did a couple like
You fucking
5K
got
runs
this,
in the
man. Like,
last few months. You know, I've been throwing the kettlebell around lately again. I'm trying to get that voodoo monkey spirit back. Because
yeah.
I remember last time I was getting off meth when I created the Voodoo Monkeys, when the Voodoo Monkeys' very first origins would have existed before we even knew we were Voodoo Monkeys.
Yeah.
I was getting off methamphetamines, and I remember telling Taylor, I woke up at like 5 in the morning one day and I couldn't breathe. I like could not breathe. I was coughing, and that goes to tell you that my lung bleeding thing is a pretty big deal, but it's just like I'm choosing a different view on this shit. Okay? So like I couldn't breathe, and I stood up that day and I was just like, I tried to go to sleep and I had this cigarette, and I'm like, why am I trying to calm myself down with a cigarette when I can't breathe? I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And like I was just thinking, and I was questioning everything I was doing in life. Why do I eat that? Why do I drink that? And I just stopped right there. I got up, I got dressed. It was like winter time. It was like cold outside. It had snowed for the first time that year, you know, and I went out for this long ass freaking little run. And yeah, it was 5 o'clock in the morning in the park. I'm running. You can like hear the coyotes still. And I'm just like thinking every step, I'm like, you're going to make it. And every step, your oxygen is going to improve, and you're going to put real oxygen in it. And all those things that they tell you you can't, you're going to, just as you always have.
That is like such a fucking like human story, and I mean that in like such an like an enlightened way. Like how you must
But
have felt
like,
more
that's only one half
yourself.
of the story. That's only one half of the story. That spirit spawned me to get you training with me. We
Yeah.
started training together, and I'm like, okay, I've quit meth now. And you know what? Like, people are like telling me all around me, like even Casey's dad, like, you just like, oh, you could have done something with your life, and it's a shame that you did these drugs. And I'm like thinking, I'm like, these people think it's over, man. And I went out, and after that, and I ran this 10 miler with you, you know, and we finished that
Still
10
with an
miler. It was a
ulcer.
good time. No, the following year was the one that was the one
Oh yeah,
brutal
that
one.
was round. That was
Yeah.
round 2. You're talking about the
But
first
like,
time.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
I beat that. We got in really good shape. Kind of had some minor setbacks that year, right? My relationship wasn't good. I had some other stuff on the go. But in the process of that, we went and ran that second 10 miler, and I had an ulcer that had started bleeding on mile 2 of 10 miles.
And you didn't stop.
Yeah, I just slowed my pace. I just went from like a fucking 450 time, because I was running with my buddy James for the first couple miles, and he was ahead of me still by a decent amount, but I could see him. Like, he wasn't too far ahead, maybe like 400 meters kind of thing. So like I was trying to keep up with him, and he had a 104 or under 104 time, I think. Even like it was a good time, but like I was trying to keep up with him. I felt some give out in my stomach, and I trained hard for that one. I was better trained for that one, so like I was a little upset with that, and I felt this cramp. And I remember I was on mile 8 or 9, and my old teacher, Mr. Searle, and I was walking, and he's like, you know, are you okay? I like was holding my stomach a little bit, and he's like, Greg, you're gonna finish. And I'm like, damn right I'm gonna finish. And like I remember I just like start running again, and I was like limping, and like I start running, and then I remember by the end of it, like, and he's running with me, and like you get around the corner, and he's like just like old times, and like, oh man, I could almost cry with this story, because like
I remember you telling me about Cyril and kind of how he inspired you in the early days of running and stuff, and that whole like the mindset of beating that limit and kind of like pushing it
yeah
for that, like running up and down the hill. And okay, get your best time. Okay, now you're the most tired. Okay, well, it's in you
Yeah.
once, it was in
So
you
like
again.
I remember like he had, like said he's like just like old times. It was like happening over again. That was the second time. Like that was exactly kind of what had happened in a race like 10 or 15 years before that. When I was in school, I had lost my courage and he was like, hit it. And I remember I took off then. And that was exactly the exact same thing. And it was just such a thing. And even though my gut had hurt so bad when I crossed that finish line, like, and I can feel it. And like, I remember I barely crossed it and I like kind of rolled over. I'm like, holy fuck. I made doctor's appointments later that week. But like, the fact that I defeated that meth addiction fully, is a pretty powerful story, But that is what the Voodoo Monkey is spawned from, was survival, was the fact that you're not just going to take a limit, you're going to break the limit. That your limitation to even death, that if somebody tells you you're going to die, you're going to say, no, I'm just going to do better.
It's the most inspiring thing I've ever fucking heard.
I think like a lot of people in life, their regret spawns from their desire to not want to do better. They get comfortable, they settle, They don't want to do better. They just want to be.
Yeah, I mean, they want to take pride in getting to where they already are.
Yeah,
they want to
but it's
just
one
keep
thing
that
to be
until...
and enjoy. And then it's another thing to stay the same. A person that wakes up every day and they drink out of the same coffee cup and they go do the same things at the same times, and they have no life. They're dead, they're not learning. You're living. You have this life that people fight so hard for their cells to survive, and those people are just not even moving. They're just being dead spirits when they're alive, and it's like, to me, that is the most crazy thing. And since then, let's talk about a lot since then. We trained for a couple of years. I hit a peak point of my fitness, and I was at one point at the best fitness of my life, even with all these health issues. In the last couple of years, I've had a lot of music. I started to get some of that rap stuff produced. That I remember I was just like rapping in the car at Cal Tire even like 5 or 6 years ago, and I had nothing then. I got another guitar after I gave my old guitar to another meth head so he could use music to recover from that.
Yeah. See, like you're fucking making differences everywhere you go. You make things better if they're willing to listen, and to kind of like take your story and your inspiration. It's so like, I love that you started this, that we can get this out there and other people can see this and kind of like go to this to inspire their life and help their journey.
Oh yeah, shout out to
It's
Steve.
huge.
What's Steve's last name?
Christensen.
Christensen.
I think so.
Christensen. Okay, well, shout
Yeah.
out to Steve for doing the Voodoo Monkey Challenge. He actually knows how much that means to me, bud.
He fucking just seen that we did it online, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it too. Why not? I'll just go out and I'll just fucking do. Sounds nuts. I'm gonna run with a 50-pound kettlebell for 3K. Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, 3K,
What?
3 km with a freaking 56, or is it 53? It's 1.5
54.
foods.
54.
Oh, it's
yeah.
a 54. It's a 54 with 54-pound kettlebell, 3K. I can't even remember our times, bro, but I know they were good. I know it was like, were we under 25 minutes or were we above?
You were under 25. I was above, and then Steve was like 30 minutes.
And you know what? Like, I even messaged him personally after, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, if you didn't do it in that window, that was my ridiculous requirement for Taylor. Like,
Yeah.
it has to be in this amount of time. Like, just because I had this thing, I would always show up at training, and right when it wasn't ridiculous enough, I had to add something to make it a little more stupid.
Yeah, it would be like the normal workout and be like, you're not tired. Okay, jump on this box for an hour.
Do you remember the instruction? The like second
It's
or
literally,
third workout? Okay,
until
today
you
we are
die. Dude, until you die.
I want you
Okay, that's
to
inspiring.
use this kettlebell and jump up and down these stairs 300 times until you die.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit of that crazy to get into the genius, realm where you're in the uncomfortable space. That's where the real growing happens. That's where the real strength happens. That's where the real will gets tested. And like, that's why I love Steve, because he just fucking did it. He's not like me. Like, I had you to do this. He's more like you, where he just fucking did it. He just did it. I mean, I did it. I just did it too. But like, you came up with the idea and stuff, and you'd been inspiring me this whole time.
But dude, that, like, I mean, this
yeah,
connection
Steve is a beast.
This connection in life, like, I was another one of our friends, like Greg's had a new lady friend hanging out, and she saw the poster, whatever, because I was showing her the guitar thing, because she heard us playing the other day, and I showed her the one post, and she's like, Voodoo Monkeys. She's like, that sounds like something. She's like, you guys got to do some of that. I'm like, we already got a podcast. We already like got the Sound Dome idea. We got so much on the go, like in the creative field idea. And she's like, that's good. But like, yeah, no, this is the Voodoo Monkeys. This is what we represent. This is who we are. And as this season's going to be a lot about Taylor finding his true self instead of relying so much on the doctrines of what people have done. I'm excited to see your story. Yeah, I'm excited to see how your story is gonna unfold with this. Like, let's even talk about like your experience with the 10-miler during these times, because you were with me both those times.
I mean, that's the first running race I ever went on.
You have done one with me, yeah.
And that's the first one I actually did the 10-mile. The first two I actually just did a 10K because I was like not that confident. Whatever. I'd never done any races before. I didn't know what would happen. There was a fear there, I think. Well, but this last time, you weren't there. There's nobody else there. I just did it. I just wanted to do it. I was like, this is the St. Albert 10-miler. This is the first race I ever ran. I ran it with Greg. We did this for Voodoo Monkeys. I'm going back. I'm not going to just give up. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the 10-mile. And I did it. And I got a better time in the 10-mile than I did in the 10K.
Word.
And it was all about how I fucking thought about it. I was so into doing it. I was like, I'm just going to go. And I started going. I was like, I'm going to follow this guy. No, he's too slow. And I passed him, I just had a great time doing the race. And I ran the best time I ever did. It's just so awesome.
Buddy. I'm in the middle of...
And not just running is awesome, but the whole Voodoo Monkey energy and the whole being spiritual and the whole like taking inspiration and just the mindset is the real inspirational part. Sorry, I'm interrupting you with
no worries. Just borrowing a pen.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that Greg's girlfriend?
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. I should have said hi to her. Oh, good.
But we covered a lot of shout outs so far on this podcast. Like, I mean,
yeah. And we should try to podcast with those guys too. I mean, you could do a podcast with Zeno.
I want to sit down in a room on video camera with Steve and talk about his experience. Honestly, I want to know kind of like some of the physical things that you were feeling after running like the 3K, because like, oh man, I remember it being like one of the most craziest feelings in my brain. Like, I was like, what just happened?
Like, that was, it didn't feel normal. Real.
Like,
I felt like there was a spirit in me going, oh, you want to do voodoo? Better dance. What?
You better dance. Yeah.
Like some in voodoo, there's like the Loa, right? And there's Baron Samedi, and there's like his his family that runs the graveyard. That's kind of like the god version of the afterlife in voodoo. And I felt like fucking Baron Samedi was like tickling my fucking nervous system and shit. It was like trippy. And I was just like loving it. There was so much happening, flowing around that. And I remember those, like the week, 2 weeks after that, I felt all weird. And it would come out in conversation and stuff. I'd just say things that I wouldn't normally say. It was weird how it kind of like, like entered and kind of like fused and kind of made that harmony with my being already. But I'm not saying that I got like possessed. What I'm saying is I got kind of like communicated, almost like as the conduit, something passed through.
But that, a lot of musicians know, and a lot of like other artists know that that's exactly how that works. That's how the path of creation is. You reach out into the spirit
conduit,
of this idea. Like, I have this spirit of anger inside myself. I'm going to reach into it and I'm actually going to pull it out. Well, that's kind of like one of my demons. That's like one of my darkest feelings. That's my pit inside myself that I'm going to pull from. The same thing when I write a happy song. I'm writing from this demon of happiness, though. It's not necessarily a demon. It's something else now. Now we're going to call this an angel. So, like, you can definitely word those things like that, right? But just here's what we don't realize is the words of what those things are also hold another consciousness, and the consciousness of those things go inside that thing. So an angel's consciousness would be those things like happiness, like this, but that's actually the consciousness of God's perfection. Versus, so like the inside self of God would be like the inside self of yourself. We have a negative, we have a positive. If you want to take up the step to go God, right? Or even universe frequency, there's negative and positive frequencies in the universe, and there's negative and positive frequencies for inside God. Even there's negative and positive things in the solar system. There's negative and positive things in the way things are formed. An asteroid belt can fuck up something that's perfectly going around.
Yeah, there's a dual nature to reality, and it kind of comes into this kind of quantum reality, right, where it both is and isn't something, but like really it is both. It's just
the spirits of those things,
mind-blowing, but really simple.
The spirits of those things hold relativity to the same kind of consciousness as what you hold. So when you think about, this is how I control this energy, well, so I guess if you're the spirit of these other things, whether it's demonic or not, what do you think that energy is like? A cigarette doesn't live, okay? A cigarette has no bearing. It's not evil, it's not, and neither is money evil or anything, but you give it to a person, what the person does with it, that's what it takes. You got to have the energy to make it now put into function. You have to now make it work. So like, I'm going to use that money, right? So when I buy a pack of cigarettes and I damage my lungs, that it isn't good for me, that it causes these health issues, that is a demon. That's a demon that latched on to my life. That's an addiction. That's something that went round and around and now is having repercussions, because as you try to separate yourself from that, it's like, okay, now you're either going to live or you're going to die.
I don't know what to say.
But like, think about that. Like, even when you're in your train, like when you're running, like, it's like, okay, I'm getting tired. Why am I tired? What's tiring me? It's because I've hit a physical limitation. The reason it feels so good to break a physical limitation, because God's on the other side of that limitation. Because the limitation was set in place by what's physical in the world, because you're told that you can only be present here. You're not told you're allowed to have peace elsewhere. And so, that's like, this idea.
The limitation of like yourself fighting your demons, having these demons that are almost reflecting you and what you're doing, is in yourself. It's in your own kind of self-control and stuff. So if the demon is smoking a cigarette, the self-control is don't smoke a cigarette, and all of a sudden you've conquered that demon. That's in really simple terms.
No,
but
not
like,
totally, because you notice
there's more
like, how those things,
other things.
It like, that's a simple way of saying it, but like, it's more like, okay, inside myself, right? There's that saying that we blame God and Satan for things that like we shouldn't blame them for, because we are also reflectives of that, because we sin, we hold both natures. So like, I choose to smoke the cigarette. The demon's
Realizing that
there.
it's
So
you doing it. Yeah.
if I choose the demon, that's me that chose it. So that's what I mean by getting off the bench. If I'm interested in smoking, let's try it. Let's battle with it. Somebody told me, oh,
Yeah.
you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. I had to see. I
That's
had
the
to be
demon.
like,
The demon
no,
says that you can, the demon's like,
yeah,
there's
yeah, you
cigarettes
can
right
do
there.
it.
You can smoke those.
Yeah.
And a lot of
But
people, they just do it. They don't think, do I want to? They forget
but
that step.
now look at the difference of these limitations. We're talking about this story, and let's look at the story of the St. Albert 10 miler when we were telling a bit that kind of brought me to some tears and remembrance there. Okay, so like that's the story of conquering demons. That's what total peace looks like. That's more pure Christ-like consciousness. Okay, and then this is the story of what demons look like when you're just fighting demons on your own. You see how that emotional wave is not the same. But we are talking about relatively real shit. It's real on both sides, and both sides know that they're real because without one, the other wouldn't exist. You can't have good without a bad side, and you can't have bad without a good side, or else it's just all of everything.
Yeah. There you go. That's why Buddhists came up with the yin yang.
That's balance.
Both things together, and it forms the balance. I seen this thing is like I was trying to look up the definition of justice, and I couldn't find a normal fucking definition. Justice is a balancing act, and that's all it is. I mean, living your life, you want to do your life justice. So I mean, that's kind of the struggle of like going back to like becoming adult, and then like ending it there. It's like, okay, I finally figured out this balancing thing. I want to just keep this balance because if I upset this, it's gonna be. And that's life, and it's the yin yang, and it's the magic of life. It's voodoo. It's black magic, white magic.
Hey,
finding what
gets
you to where you need to be.
That's like
where you want to be.
Let's take the approach here that it's just like not conventional Christianity, but let's use their source. Okay? So like for justice to be served, it's like this form of being separated. Right? So like people get what's just, right? So the form of the conscious separating itself. In the same way we have to separate ourselves from our demons to choose good, right? It's the same way God needs to separate himself from this darkness that entered heaven. If you think the body of God or the energy of God is heaven, right? And its consciousness is a thought that spread out across all of time and creation, and then he has these dark thoughts that though this evil is actually his darkest thoughts, that this fallen angel is God's thought, that we're all a part of that living thing. And that's not for us to be concerned with. But what we should be concerned with is the fact that we should separate ourselves from darkness because God needs to separate himself from darkness. But it's okay. It isn't what we should and shouldn't do. A person might find more comfort in the dark. But here's the deal. As you separate, and say you float off into infinite space, and this floats off into infinite space, if I think in pure consciousness only, eventually there would never be another thought of evil. So it doesn't matter if they exist. It would be like as if they never existed.
I guess if it was just pure consciousness, it would be like Garden of Eden kind of idea.
And as for the fire idea, and as for the fire idea,
knowledge too.
As for the fire idea, I think the same concept's all like, okay, well, you're gonna get burned by the fire. You're gonna get all this, like, you get used to it. You get used to the flames. You get used to the scarring. This is the life you wanted to live, is the one we're currently living. Because people are trying to be immortal with this life. They like this one that much. But this one's evil. So that's what makes them love evil more than makes them love good. So they will choose ultimately money and success and wealth and those things over the benefit of humanity for real. So then they will go eventually, and this is like when the Bible says whipping and lashing of teeth, I think what that means is we're just gonna that world will exist and just murder one another and kill, and they're gonna be doing it forever because they're immortal. So that's gonna be torture all in itself.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that part, but
Yeah, well, no, you're not gonna be familiar, but like anybody who is that would listen to us would kind of be able to kind of be like, all right, maybe. But like, like I don't urge people to understand so much the words that I'm using to describe these things. I urge you to understand yourself and give words to these things that are all inside yourself because they do exist. I don't care what you want to call them, right? So you do got to categorize these things, and everybody goes through this process. I think it's either the option of the paths is either it's solificati or it's sanctification.
so what's the difference between those?
Solificati would be I choose to mimic the source of life. So that's where the word sorcery would really come from. I want to go into the source of all knowledge of life, and I want to think that I know best. And then, so I'm going to pull from that source and try to mimic that exact thing, as above, so below, that whole concept. But ultimate truth is on both sides of that. But this is like a spin-off on the truth, right?
Okay. Yeah. Because once as soon as you draw from it changes it. So it's always a spin-off.
So but what's interesting, if you imagine a tree, okay, and then you imagine a tree in perfect mirror image underneath itself, okay?
Okay.
It's just like that tree is the source. That's the tree of life. That's the source of life, right? And the bottom part of it, because the ones that are in love with this world and the way we do this, like that self-improvement, that you made a mistake, how dare you attitude, right? They're pulling from that and trying to duplicate it. So that's what sorcery is. I'm pulling from the source, and that's what the separation is. This side's going to separate itself down, and this side separates itself up until they're not touching in the middle.
If they're not touching in the middle, they're no longer connected, and then the reflection is no longer accurate.
This is natural energy. This is magical stolen energy. This is sorcery, and this is like ultimate good, pure consciousness.
So that was the solificati thing. What's the sanctification thing?
Sanctification would be to come closest to God as possible. So like that would be, or
so
that's
like
more, that's
actually
more like edification. That's more like edification. But edification is, I think, is strictly spiritually. I'm calling sanctification growing closer to specifically God, because it essentially, the creation all spawns from something. For us to have this idea that we're genius because we have an idea, that is essentially the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Because where do you think you ever got an idea from? You think you created it? You got the idea from being inspired from life. Oh, yeah. You're a genius. No, you're not. You didn't create life. You don't know what energy is. You don't know what electricity really is. You might have figured out how to make a light bulb, but you ain't no shit.
You're inspired, though.
Yeah, and just because you have a math equation that proves that that energy is probably there doesn't mean you know anything. What would have Thomas Edison did if he's like, hey, I know how to make a light bulb. This is perfect. I just made electricity. But then he did a no and touched some piece of metal to it and fucking, I'm dead now. Oh, the light bulb doesn't get made for another 200 years.
Shit. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the distinction there. I honestly, I kind of want to call this now, though. Yeah. Honestly, I gotta run to the washroom. If you want to just wait, I'll be back in a second, but
okay,
I gotta go.
When you gotta go, you gotta go. So while Taylor's going to the washroom, just do a little bit of my own talking here for a bit. I have to say that Taylor holds me in this light that I'm some genius. I do not really think that I'm that genius. I like to just have these ideas. I think it's important to learn. I think wisdom is important, but like ultimately, wisdom is being able to discern what path to take, you know, and which is like the best for you. And enlightenment is knowing yourself, knowing what path you need to be on. So faith and believing is actually knowing that you were created to be on a path, that you would believe that you know you're going to be fine no matter what happens. But there are certain elements I think that are important to take into account. For me, I take into account a little bit of lots of beliefs. Some people, they don't, and anytime you're talking about beliefs, like it's to be a sticky conversation. People overcome these struggles and then somebody tells them it's not real, or we have this idea that if I believe this and you believe that, one of our beliefs isn't real. That's not true. Like everybody's belief is real. So I just was updating people here on this belief system idea, that we have this idea that beliefs, that just because you have a belief and I have a belief, we have this idea that one of those beliefs isn't real then, just because of how everything has come to be with this deceit and this lack of truth. And you know what? But that's not true. It is true. You got a belief and I got a belief, and they're both real. And like that's what I'm trying to tell people is like I can take parts of magic that like a church would deem as like wrong, right? And like it is wrong. Some of it's wrong. Like I don't touch some of that. Like, but like I just learned that the wisdom elaborates a path, you know.
Yeah,
That's
believing in something is real. Some people say seeing is believing, but it's like believing is believing. If you want it to be real, believe that it is. And I mean,
and
when I was growing up, I
believing
totally
in
believed shit
yourself.
was real, and maybe it turned out to not be real later on. But that's just growing. That's changing your mindset as you kind of are like, somebody who's a scientist, they take something that they don't know exactly what to believe, and then they figure out what they need to believe, and they start, okay, I'm going to
Also
choose, I'll
in
believe this
yourself,
thing,
right?
and it's either going to be true or it's not. But having belief is real, and I think everybody should have some kind of belief in their
Yeah,
life.
I think the number one confidence barrier is we're trying to do it ourselves. Like belief in yourself, but like I mean, I choose to have the belief that in myself that I am okay because God made it okay. Because I'm a part of this ultimate destiny or this ultimate plan, so that I don't worry that I'm here right now. It's just like, why would I worry about what I'll eat, what I'll drink, what I'll do? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I am perfectly taken care of because I was articulate or perfectly placed in a certain sequence at a certain time, at a certain, like I don't have to worry about it. I just
It's
need
yeah,
to be concerned with my choice in the middle. I need to separate myself from those things that are bad thinking and be more enlightened in ways that are, I guess what people see as holy, but that's not true. A real leader doesn't see themselves as a leader, they see themselves as a smaller sheep than everybody else.
yeah, just the first one to do what everybody else is going to do anyways. But it's like shit. Now I forgot what I was going to say earlier.
Oh shoot, I hate when that happens, but sometimes whatever.
Yeah, I know, it's like choosing, to say something other than like holding on to what you had before. It's just like sometimes it doesn't matter. But I think I remembered what I was going to say about like how no matter where you are in life, everything that you've done in life has led you to where you are now. So who's to say that it was wrong or right? What it is what it was. So you're either going to learn from it or you're going to run from it. So learn from it, make the right decision.
Run from it. Ah, you see? So what are you going to do?
Be fit like monkey.
Oh my goodness, the original Voodoo Monkey intro.
Yeah,
Hey,
that was
what
some good
intro
stuff.
are we using? Do you know what? I'm
Oh,
down on the spaceship intro.
no, I
Or do you
want to
got something?
use because we jammed that other night, right? We jammed for like 4 hours. We recorded something. I called it the Voodoo Jam, And I'm gonna take a snippet of that and I'm gonna put it in the intro part because that was some real like
Which
sounded
one?
so fucking
Are you
nuts.
talking about the one that was at the start? Because I
Yeah, right at
listened
the
to that.
start.
Yeah,
That was so like that was so cool.
yeah, definitely. So like you guys are gonna get a little bit of taste of Sound Dome. So what Sound Dome is essentially, aside from that description I gave of all this pedals and stuff, I think the aiming here is like it's kind of going to be this idea of this collision of sounds of me and Taylor playing guitar, which I kind of would like to turn it into a band, but lately I've been having more of this idea of a YouTube channel and us in a room full of guitar stuff and other stuff and just playing through different musical variations randomly on the spot on a live YouTube feed a couple times a week. I think that would be dope. I think that would get a lot of views. And I'm starting to see that gaining business is the very first seal in life.
Trippy. Yeah. I like the idea of doing a lot of experimenting with sounds and kind of trying out different pedals. There's a few people I follow on YouTube that are really into that and just kind of taking different things. And there's like
And
Ola who has a channel
there is
as
nothing in
well at
game
Chug,
like that
right?
that's blowing it under the water yet either. You know what I mean? Like when I
Yeah.
go watch YouTube
I
stuff
want
for
to make sure
guitar,
that
I'm like,
it's
okay, this is
musical.
good, but it's a little cheesy. They're doing that typical YouTube view that like gamers do sort of thing. And I'm like, no, I have this image in my head that I could do a Taylor that we could just freaking kill this. So like I think like I honestly am thinking the Voodoo Monkeys are gonna have like a second part to them. Sound Dome will be the essential room that all this stuff will take place in. And I'm also hoping to make it a double standard so that we can shoot live podcasts in the same room as well as have our dome of sound going on, which would be sick.
Yeah.
Even if we get good enough at this art to the point that we can show up, pick up our guitars, play an intro, and be like, yeah, welcome to the Voodoo Monkeys.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That reminds me of like Wayne's World. Um, I like the idea a lot. I want to make sure that we don't just like get lost in the just the effects, just the kind of soundscape kind of thing. I want to make sure that we're doing melodies and we're kind of progressing in some way,
Yeah, that we're
instead of
solely
just
getting
being
that
like,
because
whoa, it's really
that's the
trippy.
point, right?
I like trippy shit too,
We're
but
taking
like,
the stuff from inside us and we're got to
yeah,
be progressing and getting better.
it'd be
Every
awesome
skill
if we
needs to
could,
be getting better at the craft. Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
like
There was things
communicating
I was
through
doing.
songs, and
There was
adding words to it and having the lyrics. Like, I think that's a very powerful thing.
aside from that, you know what? Like, I mean, sometimes I think you miss the never satisfied because like I was doing things that I had never done on a guitar before when I was with you.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's
like
pretty awesome. But I don't know if it's like good YouTube content.
see, okay, yo,
I think that's more of a
bro.
personal discovery thing that
Yeah,
is only
no,
going to
but
influence
no,
you as a
no, that is
musician.
good. Listen to me. That is good YouTube content. What are you talking about? Social media, everything. Why do you think
Good life
yoga gets a
content.
hit? Why do you think this gets a hit? It's all about personal growth content.
Yeah, but
You know
who's
what I
gonna
mean? I'm
learn
just
from
talking
you
about
from you
capturing
just
something that
playing
hasn't yet
guitar?
happened.
Only
Yeah,
other guitar players that already know how to learn whatever they see is gonna learn from that, and they probably already know
dude,
what you're
you know
doing.
what? Dude, see, look, you're okay. Stop it.
I am
Knock
kind
it
of
off.
like not
Knock it
that
off.
into that
You're
just
getting too
straight up
passionate.
thing, but like I really
You're
want to
getting
do a lot
too
of experimenting
this.
with this.
You're becoming a snob, not a creator. Be a creator, not a
I'm not
snob.
saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying I don't want it to be the main
Don't
focus.
deplete energy. Get your negative energy out of here.
I'm telling
Knock
you, the
it off.
main focus has to be on making songs
Yeah, that would
and,
be a
and
pull.
increasing your kind of musical abilities, which is what these jams are about.
Dude. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're missing the point. That's already happening. So you're so focused on that to take place that you miss that actually already happening. Like even movements. Like I'm talking about the art of guitar here. Like
Yeah.
you're sitting there in movements and I'm like strumming and I'm like, I've never done that before in my life. I'm like, why am I strumming like that? Why am I lifting off? Oh, that's how you do that. That's how I make the guitar growl like that. That's how I make that sound there. That's how I do that thing there. Like, that's how I know from it. But aside from that, it's literally us. When you think about a freestyle rapper, everybody's impressed because they rap freestyle, right?
Yeah.
Now think about a freestyle guitarist. People don't see that process. People just always want perfection. The growth is what's beautiful, baby. The growth. It's when we had this
Sure.
breakup thing in the beginning of that song, right? That you're like, that was wicked. It's just like this breakup, and you got this phaser, and we have these ridiculous sounds going on, and it's kind of like we are following a note scheme, and then all of a sudden it's just like and
It syncs
then
up,
all
you
of a
know.
sudden go into that and it sounds like a freaking ghost song, for fuck's sakes. Like,
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is those moments of inspiration and the true harmony thing, you know, happening where we kind of
you're
like
trying to skip
meld.
over them.
No, that's the only part that I
You're
want to
trying to skip
highlight.
over them. You just want the end result of the perfection. You want the, okay, let's just get right to the harmony. The harmony doesn't come like
No,
that,
I
bro. You
realize
gotta
that, and I know that we got to get through all that to get to there. But I'm saying maybe we should, if we're gonna record this and put it onto YouTube, we should cut out the in between parts a little bit,
Why?
just
Because
to
you're
focus
scared
on
of
the
what
good
people are
parts.
gonna think about you? No.
I don't even care. If you want to put it like that, whatever. We'll just put it out like that. But what I'm saying is, like, I would rather watch something that had a lot of the, just, you know, the highlights of like, okay, here
I
was a
would
jam,
rather
we jammed
do
for 2
what I
hours.
wanted to
Here's 30
do
minutes of really
rather
good
than do
stuff,
what
rather
people
than
expect of
here's
me,
an
which
hour and a
has
half
been
of a
the
lot of
main.
filler stuff, us figuring it out, and a half hour of true inspiration. Whereas
Yo,
we
this
could
has
just
been a
cut
big.
through
Hey,
and just give them a
Taylor,
half hour of true inspiration.
true inspiration is true inspiration. Edited is untrue. That's a half truth. When I give you a finished product, a song is actually a half truth. The things that you see happening
True.
with the song, that
Actually.
song doesn't sound that good when it was created. It does not. It is this process of being refined, the same as anything else. See, people look to an artist and they want that perfection, or you look to a YouTube and you want that perfection, but that isn't what's going to happen. What's going to happen is more beautiful, is if we desire that and we have fun doing it. Like, we didn't even know we were recording at that one point when I did that one solo. I
Yeah.
forgot entirely, right? So, like, that's my point. If you're doing that on a YouTube video, and as you're loading these YouTube, you're having the talking in between, that's a subdivision. We got the band thing. Writing songs is what Sound Dome does off that YouTube channel.
You know what I'm maybe missing here is that eventually we might get that good that it is 2 hours of complete inspiration, and where we are just like totally playing off each other the whole time.
This
You know,
is what I was trying
I'm
to
just
tell
like kind
you
of looking
about
at it and I'm like, okay, well, I know there's going to be that kind of cringy stuff, but like we're going to get better every time that we do it, and eventually it might be all that good. You
kind of
know?
like
So you're right.
look at our
I had to
look
kind
at our
of
yeah
think about that a bit, but yeah.
look at our old podcast, look at our new one, look at where we were, look at where we are now. And in the same
Yeah.
way, it's like it's all been a process. We enjoy that process. I can still go back to an old episode, watch it, and enjoy it thoroughly, even though that most people probably didn't. But like, what ultimately matters of true happiness isn't like how much money I make or what we do or how public we get. It's the fact that we're doing this right now. You and me, we are live on the internet. Maybe not live yet. We will load this later, but we're live over this phone call, making our podcast. We're going to edit this barely. We're going to load it. And that's going to be that. We're going to have that like whole intro. And the same way Sound Dome is like, you enter the Sound Dome, it's this fighting demons, it's your inner peace. If I strum the guitar that hard and it doesn't sound good, well, I guess that just happened to be the demon I was wrestling with. You know what I mean? The same with you. Like mistakes, that's what I mean. That element in life that mistakes are okay versus mistakes aren't. Oh, you made a mistake? How dare you? We have this idea of that. Get better. Push yourself, for sure. Break those limits, always. But enjoy the process, because the middle is all you do have. The beginning and the end you didn't make. You only get the center.
It's kind of funny. Some people identify as being on one side or the other, but like ultimately you're in the middle. You're on a journey. You're always going from one thing to another. And then once you get to that spot, then there's the next thing after that. I mean, you're on your commute home from work, so you're going from work to home, and then you get home and it's like, okay, what, I'm done my journey. But it's like, no, you got the journey to make supper. You got the journey to, go to bed for that night. And then once you go
And
to bed, you
aside
got
from
the
that
journey to
journey of
get to
making
sleep. And then
supper,
once
what
you're
are you
asleep, you got
making?
the journey to get through your dreams or your
Hey,
nightmares.
what are you making for supper?
And
How
then there's the
much
next
are
day.
you sleeping? Are you sleeping enough? Like, are you sleeping in good position? There's lots of things to consider here.
If you want to analyze your life like that, a lot of people
Well,
don't
you
want to,
should,
and you don't need
because your
to.
health. No, you do. You do. Let's talk about that. Let's actually talk about maybe even sleeping positions. That's a good one. So, sleeping on your stomach, don't do it. Do not do it.
What's unhealthy about sleeping on your stomach?
Read about it, Mister. I'm an educated scientist,
Okay.
and I relate
Here, I'll
my
look
science.
it up. No, that's okay. I'll look it up.
You know what?
Stomach
Like,
sleeping.
I love you for that reason. You baffle me how apparently logical you are, but then something that's so simple like that, you like completely don't even ever pay attention to.
So, cons. Sleeping on your stomach is probably the worst sleeping position, especially if you have back problems. It flattens the natural curve of the spine, which can lead to lower back pain. Plus, sleeping all night with your head turned to one side will strain the neck. Now we know. Don't sleep on your stomach because it hurts your back.
So check this out. As you're turned to think about that. Now let's apply this. As you're laying on your side or you got back pains, right? That's putting stress on your nervous system. And your nervous system is essentially your ability to think. So if you put stress on your nervous system, a person wakes up in the morning and they're agitated. They don't know why. Somebody does something that shouldn't piss you off. It does piss them off. They get a reaction. They're like, oh, what was that from? They're not like, oh, because I slept all fucked up and my nervous system is putting stress on there. And when you do tell them that, a person's like, that's bullshit. And you're like,
yeah.
Are you fucked?
Yeah. I mean, it could be that simple. Some people, why I'm so stressed all the time. I'm so stressed. I don't know why. And they try to put it out into their work or something or their personal life. But it's like, maybe you just need to fucking buy a better bed, buy a different pillow, sleep on your back for once, see what happens. It could be something that simple. And almost it always is that simple of a thing. And they think it's something else and they attack their demons and they, but really it's just analyze, okay, this part, like what can I do better? Is what I'm doing here totally wrong and stuff? And a lot of people just go to the doctor because we live in Canada, it's free. Like, oh, something, I'm getting this weird thing happening. They don't know usually. They're like, I'm here if you're like having something that's obviously giving you like serious sickness. Other stuff, I mean, maybe you need something different.
Most things that people see a doctor for are like, you're just weak-minded. Honest to God. Like, go home.
A lot of it can be pretty simple. But I mean, there should be some better education system out there where we can learn, like, okay, we have a healthcare system.
Of life.
What should you go to the healthcare system for? Like, it should be common sense. If you're feeling sick.
Okay, here's what's crazy. No, let me tell you though, all the things that you shouldn't go to it for, they just treat you like shit anyways because they're like, why are you here? But then when you actually do have a serious thing, they're like, oh, but we can't help you. Sorry.
I don't know about that. I've gotten help from the.
No, dude. Let me tell you, because
your
like,
fucking,
bleeding airways, right? When you got bleeding airways, there's not much they can do for you at that point. I think the surgery they can do, they won't do till it's like a later on stage, right? And like it's like a 30% of people make it through the surgery. So like fucking they won't do it till it already is a later stage, and by that point it isn't gonna stop it entirely. It's still gonna kill you. So that they pretty much guarantee that you're dead with those things. You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. So like they can't help you anyways. So like I go to the doctor, I'm coughing up blood, right? And I'm finally like, I got this napkin, I have this sample. I'm like, yeah, let's see them tell me it's nothing now, those little fucks. And I walk in there and I'm like, hey, like I walked up to the desk and I slammed this bloody napkin on the desk. And she's like, what is that? I'm like, it's a napkin with blood on it. She's like, where did it come from? I'm like, from me, you moron. She's like, no, what? Where? I'm like, well, obviously it's got phlegm in it. I coughed it up.
Yeah.
And so, like, they freaking get me into the emergency room in like 15 minutes. And the doctor walks in. Like, I was barely waiting there, right? This
Yep.
is before I went for this last appointment and got my surgery scheduled and all this other stuff. But, like, I walk in there, and the doctor, she walks in, and she's like, okay, okay. She's listening to me tell it, okay, all right. So what do you want me to do about it?
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like,
What do you want me
well,
to do about it?
I'm like,
Aren't you the
can you
doctor?
tell me what this is or what's going on? And you know what she said to me? She's like, you know what it is.
Really? She told you that you know. You're like, okay, well, I
Yeah,
know I'm coughing up
well, you're
blood.
coughing up blood. Like, I'm sorry. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, this is what it is. You know what it is. You're doing it. You said it. You like that is the diagnosis. It happened. You've been diagnosed. Like, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, okay, excellent point. Because I won't take medication. Like, and the medication they can give me for that isn't gonna help it because it has to be a surgery, and they're not doing that till a later stage. And like, I'm not gonna take painkillers for it. So I guess the only thing I can do is medicate on life and be as happy as I can be as best as I can be, enjoy the time that I'm here, you know? So like, I mean, the reality of it is like people go to doctors, they're like, I have a cold, I need a pill. I have a cold. Something outside here isn't going to make inside here better. Start on the inside, fix it, and then the outside will follow. If I start on the inside, I'll naturally be healthier out here. But if I say, oh, rather than eat salads, I'm just going to take an antibiotic.
Well, I guess if they keep making themselves sick.
Yeah. What's the point? You're just making yourself sick. That's why the doctors keeps giving you a pill. And then you want somebody to fix it for making you sick. You did that to yourself. That's not growing. That's you being a weak-minded individual. That's the same mentality as a drug addict.
Yeah. And that reminds me of like the opioid thing that's happening where a lot of people they demand that they be given pain medication because they don't want to feel anything. They want to feel the numbness. They want to be relaxed all the time. They want to feel comfortable, but life makes them uncomfortable. They've lived their life in a way that they have constant pain. So then they become addicted to these opioids and that feeling. And that's something that's true in pharmaceuticals right now. And it's as big of a problem, I think, as people being addicted to other drugs.
When I found out I was bleeding, like when I was coughing up blood, and it wasn't gonna stop, like I remember talking to you. I think I had like about like 2 weeks of time where I was like really like kind of down and out, and I was like really like fucking, yeah, my life's over. This sucks. And
I
then
remember you talking about that and the feeling the pain of death, like really
yeah,
being
and
aware of
like
what death
and
is.
And do you know what it was? Because I've had more time to reflect on it. It wasn't the fact that I'm scared or that I didn't or I did do it to myself. I did do it to myself. Fucking hands down. But here's the deal. It's the fact that what hurts me the most about that is I chose my time on earth doing that rather than making more of a difference than I could have. I chose my time damaging myself rather than realizing my worth. I chose myself not to fight my demons rather than to find out some things might be a little late, but it's never too late, but that things have a course. But I kind of have gone through all these processes to realize that like it's perfectly okay. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be scared about it. I'm not going to live in vain over it, like I'm going to enjoy every bit of my life until it is over. And that's why when I say something like, hey, let's start Sound Dome, no, we're fucking starting Sound Dome. It's going to be what I imagine in my head because I'm going to do it because when I'm on my deathbed, I don't care how many people saw it or how many people followed it. All as I care about is the message I left behind or what can be. That might even grow later.
Yeah.
So that's what greater than greater means.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me of that third person view of I love myself versus the first person view. Whereas you find out you're sick, and your first person view is to, you know,
Pity
be
yourself.
sick and yeah, feel that pity, you know. Whereas the third person view would be to, what am I going to leave behind in this time? This is a very trying time. This is a very important time. What can I leave out there? And I remember you
So
telling me, and during that same time, that you were going through a lot of old contacts and saying, give spreading all this forgiveness and acceptance of what happened in the past, and kind of like showing what you'd learned since then. And that probably was huge in getting your mindset to where it is now. That's such a different thing than what a lot of people would do. And it comes into that third person view again, where
and
you need to step back from your life sometimes.
the number one thing I want out of life more than anything, like when I think about the reality, and like I'm trying not to be grim and negative here, because who knows, I believe in miracles and I know my mind's strong. Who knows, maybe I'm gonna pull myself out of this somehow, right? But like in the reality of what's been going on with me, if I were to pass, there's a chance that like my parents could outlive me. And when I think about that, and I think about like how I figured out things that they didn't figure out, but I still have nothing to show for it, I haven't applied the wisdoms that I've learned yet either. So like that's been a lot of me recording this music and doing these things, because like ultimately I think about like I might be doing these things and I remind myself, I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I might not be here. And I'm like, well, I'm doing these things and making this money and want to do this because I want to retire my parents. My parents have spent their whole lives working and doing these things. And I think the coolest thing ever in life would be to like leave the people I care about so that they don't have to worry. Because like God said, why do you have to worry? Are you not more valuable in the word? I'll take care of you. And so that those people I have found very comforting words with in my life, that I know are God following people, as much as the up and downs or the different areas that they visit in their life, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately going to be the statement of my life the most, is that I want to reflect that God is ultimate, you know? And like, I don't think that that would have been something I would have said at one point, because like I wasn't dying at one point. I didn't have death to be such a big reality. I only had a couple close encounters. This brought it a little more like, no, it's going to happen sometime, and it might happen sooner than you think it's going to happen. So maybe you should consider, what are you doing today? So when I wake up now, that I don't think I ever have a day where I wake up ever anymore where I'm like, oh, I want to sleep in. That does not happen. I could sleep for 3 hours and I'm like, it's time to start the day. Woo! I'm up.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and what an inspiring story this is. And like, I promise to God, Taylor, if I ever do pass away one night in my sleep, you make sure that this particular podcast goes viral, because like,
I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm not gonna stop doing this.
yeah,
This
100%. But you make this podcast, this right here, this episode go viral if I ever die, because this episode captures my life in such a way and fashion I feel would be very awesome. And like, I don't mean to speak from fulfilled. I still see a future, and God willing, as much as He allows me, you know. But I'm gonna continue breaking limitations until I don't wake up, and that is as simple as that. And like, I mean, I've broken limitations in my physical, I've broken my mental, I've broken spiritual ones, I've broken limitations in drugs that people said you would die from. I have broken limitations in recovery from drugs that people said couldn't be done. I have broken limitations into magic that people said didn't exist. And I've broken all these limitations just to find out none of it matters. The only thing that matters is how I choose to love the person next to me.
you're laying it all out. I think this episode has got it all out there. It's got it. If you just watch this and you ask the relevant questions that you need to throughout to understand where you're coming from and the things that you're describing, that you could actually learn a lot about life itself and what being human really means.
And the search of the voodoo monkey is kind of that whole idea of the search of yourself. That's what I said. It's like that's what we've been doing. We're building spiritual homes. It's like, you think I have a spiritual home, Taylor? Like, you think I got this shit figured out? I ain't got this shit figured out. Would Joe Rogan say we're a bunch of mindless drones or shopping carts? Oh, what's going on? None of us know.
It's kind of true. we create the illusion that we know,
So
it's like okay, well, I know what's happening here.
What?
And
You're going to be an adult? It's like, yeah, I'm going to be an adult and I'm going to know. Okay, this is being an adult. What? None of you guys know? Nobody knows. Hey, somebody tell me what's going on here. What, you don't know either? What the fuck?
How do you be the guy that asks that question first, though? It's so easy to just fall in. It's like this monkey experiment that they did where there was a bunch of monkeys in a cage, and inside of it they had a ladder, and on top of the ladder they would have a lever. So the monkey, eventually one of them would climb up the ladder and pull the lever, and they would get a treat. So okay, well, we love pulling levers, so they would start doing that, and then they switched the treat with drenching cold water over all of the monkeys. So one would go up to get a treat, pull the lever, they're all drenched. And then all the monkeys would beat up the monkey that pulled the lever. And any other monkey that went and did it would get beat. And they started switching out the monkeys with new monkeys. And the monkeys would just copy the behavior. And then eventually they turned off the water when it was about halfway through of changing out the monkeys. So that if any monkey went up and pulled the lever, nothing would happen. But the monkey would still get beat up. And it became whoever pulls the lever gets beat up, and they'd switch out of the monkeys. And all of a sudden there was no original monkeys left, but they would still beat up the monkeys, whoever pulled the lever, even though nothing else happened.
So that goes to show that people get stuck in patterns all the time.
Yeah.
And those patterns are what we call a schedule or a time loop or our week to week or whatever, right?
But I mean, some people who make schedules all the time, they do create that space. They're like, okay, well, this is what I have to do in life. And then there's like, okay, well, here's a spot that hasn't been taken up. There's my real freedom zone there. And that's where they kind of break the cycle, All right, I got 2 hours on Friday to become uncomfortable, to break the limit, I'm not saying that it's a matter of having a schedule or not. It's a matter of making the time to do something you've never fucking done before, making the time to break your cycle, to introduce something new.
Yeah, 100%. Like, okay, look at my life a little bit more, like, and like, I don't want to like make this all about me. Sometimes it ends up being that way. Just
you got to draw from your own life. You are yourself. Yeah. So
but like,
I sympathize with that a lot. I do it all the time.
I had a couple girlfriends in the process. Taylor has known me, and like I had this like unconventional way of living. Like, although I have all this wisdom and all these ideas, I have this way of living my life where it just like the whole working thing. Like, I don't mind working, don't get me wrong. Like, I worked most of my life. No problem. I'd go get a job, make some money. But like the whole working thing, I was like always struggled with the money and the paycheck to paycheck and certain lessons in life. I'm getting better with those lessons now, but like I always really struggled with those things. And eventually, like, it wear down my relationships. Like, I had problems with my girlfriends and stuff because like I remember one time Casey said to me after I'd got done in the gym with you, she's like, "You're wasting all your time going to the gym and doing this." Like, I was getting off meth. I've been off meth for like a couple months, and these people expect me to fucking be working full-time job, and I'm like sitting there throwing up. Remember when I was throwing up at Cal Tire? And stuff?
Couldn't believe you were doing what you were doing. I was like, oh, this guy's in rough shape, and you didn't heal very fast. It was a long time. It was like a whole month where you were puking every once in a while, just having a lot of like coughing fits and stuff, but you would just deal with it, pick up a wrench, and go back to work. It was like mind blowing. I was like, holy crap, I can't believe this guy's just that tough. I was like, damn, okay, well, I know that guy is gonna not stop no matter what's happening, right?
Yeah, and I got
this guy in this shop, like, holy shit.
I got a huge group of friends that think I'm a puss because like I don't work like that all the time. Like, well, guess what? Like, I caught chickens for years and all that shit too. Like, right? Like
yeah, and then you started throwing out all these genius ideas that I could tell was very intelligent, and I was like, this guy's really smart, you know, like I gotta find something to like say to him. And eventually, I remember you talking about God, and you're like, I remember I have this theory that God is energy, and I was like, okay, that reminds me that the universe is God, and they're kind of like, so God, universe, energy, like it's all links up, and that's where to me like that we connected and started doing this, you know, realized we're voodoo monkeys before we realized we were voodoo monkeys. That's where it started for me. It was the intelligent connection. Man, I'm never gonna forget that. Definitely not. And just seeing this guy come in that looks like death and just continues on and makes life happen.
I didn't have a
and
mustache then. Neither did Taylor.
no, and nice mustache, bro.
This
I
thing
got a
is
good one going. Mine's a little thin, but it's there.
Dude, I've been taking care of this and grooming this baby for a little while.
Yeah. Hey, I actually signed up to this Mobro challenge where I'm gonna run 60K this month. It's supposed to be like raising money too, but I'm mostly just doing it as a personal challenge to kind of get my health back up, you know, and get back running. And oh, you remember the River Valley Revenge? I want to enter into that. And see how fucking terrifying.
I wanna take a step further here. I'm gonna talk to a couple of my friends, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna make this happen yet. But like I have this dream. I want to make it happen. Like I want to create a race for lung cancer.
Okay. Race for lung cancer.
Yeah, like I mean this year I'm pretty sure we're gonna do 10-miler together. Like I'm been thinking about that, but like I mean, like I want to in the process of my journey and trying to like overcome what I'm trying to overcome. Like I don't know totally all the technicalities of how they deal with that and when it progresses and when it doesn't and when they just kind of turn an eye and try not to get you to think about it, right? Because all that's very real in that system. But here's the deal. I cough up blood every day. They don't know totally why yet, and they don't know how to fix it, but I'm pretty sure I know what I know, like that doctor said. So what I would like to do is I want to create a race that is strictly a fundraiser that goes towards the research that needed to potentially be able to help these souls and individuals that have lost their way upon a path and damaged their bodies and that need to be fixed, but we can't seem to be able to fix it. So I think it would be cool to have a fundraiser that could go to that research, but like through a race like that. But like I would like to organize it to be in St. Albert.
I don't even know the steps to do that, but like we can like look this up and we can find out. I haven't
talked to him much. Yeah. And Jaden, he's a professional runner. Jaden's a professional runner. So is James. They started the altitude over altitude or whatever race. So they started an ultra. They've already got their bears in there. The medals from the River Valley Revenge Ultra, he designed them. James designed them the one year. So like they got their claws in that industry really well. I'm gonna see what I can do. I don't know if I'm gonna participate in it. I will like maybe a smaller distance. But
you could be like the master of ceremonies.
Yeah, I might do a smaller distance because I don't think I could handle the long go, but who knows? Maybe I'll decide fuck it just because I'm getting emotional about it. I'll be like fuck it, I'm gonna do the big one. Only live once. Can't allow limits to break it, right?
Well,
so,
at some point it's probably just you gotta do.
I'm gonna make sure that happens so that like in the next and it's gonna happen relatively. I'm gonna let's aim by next summer. I'm gonna try to make sure that goes. Remember last time I set goals on a podcast and then like a year later I'm like that happened, done deal.
Yeah, send a message.
I was like, I'm making all this money. I'm like, I'm gonna have a car. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna move to the city. I remember laying out all these goals.
Yep.
They've all been accomplished. We're on to new ones.
Yeah. Let's keep on going through them. On to the next path. Each goal is like a stair. or maybe not a stair, but like a level of some kind.
But
Maybe it's not
anyways,
going
the
up. Maybe
Voodoo
it's not.
Monkeys.
It's
This
just
isn't
spiritually
just.
ascending.
But this run isn't going to be just a run for specifically myself. This is going to be a run for the Voodoo Monkeys. This is going to be a Voodoo Monkey sponsored event. This is going to be one thing that might get us even on the map with some of our media and getting us things flowing here. And like, I mean, we're taking that step back from total ridiculous young stupidity as the Voodoo Monkeys and that meaning into a more logical, like, let's be in control of our primate systems kind of idea. So
Yeah, and
season
it's
season two is
basically
a lot
something.
about our reuniting too, right?
Yeah, this could be something that people could easily get into and understand that what it's for, and understand that it's a really positive thing that is going to help others to break through those boundaries that are keeping them back. And people that have lung cancer, probably had a history of addiction, and this being kind of this inspiring force to
Not
break
even
that
so.
cycle.
Some of them, like this
That's
is
true.
what's not fair. Some of
I'm
them,
not.
like
I try not to
they're
generalize.
born with
Yeah.
it, or
Yeah.
or something else happens that causes it. And aside from just that, let's just say cancer in general. Let's say aside from cancers are like necessary. There seem to be a form of death in life. But like there's some things in life that are just unfortunate. Like for example, I didn't have somebody, like people said don't do these things. I didn't have somebody that was kind enough to be like, why you don't do these things. And because nobody took the time to do that, and because my parents didn't know any better, what I turned out to have health issues that existed long before I was an adult and long before I did these things to my body. So what I did, most people probably could recover from eventually. It took a strong mind to beat the meth and stuff, but you would recover from it eventually. But because of me not knowing certain things about my actual past and growing up, I wasn't able to. And that wasn't because my parents were cruel and miserable. It's because they didn't know. They didn't know. They were adults that didn't know because we think they know. And that's where this idea of having expectations of people come from. If we hold expectations, of course they're going to disappoint us. Of course. They can only disappoint us because they're never going to fit our expectation because our expectation is ours. That expectation is your moral compass. That's for you. That's how you grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was kind of not seeing that right.
Seeing what right? What were you not seeing
Well,
right?
the expectation of like of this race idea of that it's to inspire and stuff, and to raise money, like that is what it's about too. But like it's more about just realizing where you, well, fuck. See, I don't even see it right now.
So
I'm trying
Taylor,
like,
the first one could be just us running fucking by ourselves through a field. Who
well,
knows?
yeah, I mean that would be enough, right? And then just kind of having the energy there.
We already did that. You remember? Like I hold this still to this is like something I get to say for the rest of my fucking life. I ran in the middle of winter 25K, my last day of being 25 years old, from Camrose to Edford.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite podcasts too. Is when we podcasted after that. Like that was awesome. Here's my birthday present to myself. Well, I'm turning 25, so I'm gonna run 25K.
Did we even post that podcast?
Yeah, I think it's on there. I'm gonna double check. It's called episode 2, I think. Greg's birthday. It's like episode 2, Greg's birthday.
No shit, eh? I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, I think it's on there.
See, now do
There
you
was a
see the
point where it was
reason why
unlisted,
we do
but I
this?
put it back on.
The real reason we podcast is for the growth. When we get followers along the way and those who have grown with us along the way, that's going to be a wicked feeling. But time takes work, and work happens over time. Rome is not built in a day.
I'm just trying to find which one it is here. Oh
I
no,
think
this isn't it. Maybe it's not on here. I totally thought that we uploaded it. Maybe it's only on the SoundCloud because we actually started at SoundCloud. I don't even remember doing that.
Yeah, you know what? It might be on the SoundCloud one actually, because like I think you're right about that. But
Because there's
anyways, yeah, 'cause
some that's
we
not exclusive.
recorded, didn't we? That's the one I set all the goals on, isn't it? Because we recorded it in my place. No, we didn't do it in my place, did we?
That would. Wait, here it is.
I don't think we uploaded that one, did we? Oh,
It's right here.
oh, is it?
Yeah, it's on here. It's got 6 views. I didn't see it when I was on a different channel though. I didn't see it until I logged in as this own channel, but that's some stuff for later. I mean, we don't have to worry about this too much right now. I mean, it's public visibility. I don't know why the heck I didn't see it earlier, but
Yeah. So a lot of like, let's talk about like one more element here before we shut this podcast down because it's getting pretty late.
yeah,
Like I want to talk about like one more element of something like which is more discussion between us, but it's good for other people to hear too. Is like this whole idea of social media, right?
okay.
And when we're trying to, a lot of people take the approach, right? Like we're trying to succeed at something, right? That's pretty standard, pretty normal. I'm down for that, right? But like, I mean, I'm taking the approach as I have a message that needs to be shared. Success needs to be a byproduct of that message, not so much I need to get the success right away. People want to put work in and get immediate gratification out of it rather than let it become a thing over time, you know?
Yeah. I think the difference is some people show, "Hey, look, I'm doing it right. Look at me doing it right." Instead of this is right. You know, here's my truth. This is who I am. You know, accept it or leave. You know, it's kind of like being yourself versus like being who you think other people should see you to be. That's the difference, you know? And you know, I think maybe I should fucking change some shit about what I'm doing now about that. I kind of like just try to do it more artistic of like, hey, check this out. What does this mean? In just these kind of like abstract descriptions and stuff. I have some posts where I'm like actively trying to inspire or whatever, but a lot of it's just like, hey, look, here's the thing. And in a lot of ways, that's people just showing their identity. You know, here I am somebody who likes to go to the zoo. I'm somebody who likes to go to the mountains. Here I am. Oh, look, it's Abraham Lake. This is cool. Look, there's methane bubbles. You know, just sharing something that's cool or interesting. Some people just share funny stuff. You know, I don't want to criticize everybody's social medias, you know, but like there's definitely differences between people. Um, I had Shelby Salmon on the podcast, and it was entirely because of the social media that she was doing, and it being an active message, you know. And she's got her Juice Plus, and it's like, here's the difference. This is not like other vitamins, and like showing that I kind of plugged that a little bit, and the whole inspiration thing of going through this journey and doing the things that are going to make you successful.
And do you remember when we first started the podcast and I was giving you these ideas and you were sitting there and you're like, I don't know about that. I don't know how we're going to do that. And I don't know if that's going to happen. And
Well, I
for
was
fuck's
worried about
sakes,
what people would
there's,
say, and
dude, I created, listen to this. I created it, gave you the idea of it, abandoned you for a little bit, and you fucking ran it on your own. And then
yeah,
I returned to you. So don't tell me that you first of all have no spiritual home and you haven't grown at all. And then the second thing is like, what if I would have listened to you? What if I would have been like, yeah, you're right. That's not a good idea. No, I'm like, no, we're doing it, and this is what we're gonna do. And I used to say that to you all the time for a first little while, and I'd be like, yeah, we did this podcast because Taylor wouldn't upload it here because he's a fucking puss cake. I remember saying that on like an episode,
yeah. I was like, there's like
and
more
I'm
shit. Like you
like,
don't know how to do any of this uploading. I was trying to get you to like download something from Google Drive, and you're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, oh my goodness.
I don't give a fuck. I'm like, let's just shoot it. You're like, the technology doesn't exist. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we could just screen record something. Like Taylor's giving me these huge engineering terms, and I'm like, Just download a fucking app. Let's go on it.
There's got to be one somewhere. It's the modern age. There's an app for that. Well, we found it. It's Skype.
It was so funny. I remember one time Taylor's like, we're talking on this podcast in the same room, and I'm like, we should shoot a live video. He's like, yeah, but we're not there yet. We don't quite have the technology. I'm like, what are you talking about? I pulled up my Facebook and I hit live stream.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that I don't know. Like all the time, I'm proven to be both really intelligent and not very intelligent at the same time.
Yeah, but do you know what? That's everybody. See, and that's the step. That's the step I think people need to make to understanding connections.
Realizing there's both sides to it.
Is
you're
realizing
really
that
smart and you're really dumb.
About this, you're intelligent about that, and our minds are actually not different. It's a matter of who's willing to act on it. Like, because if I die tomorrow, did I do it? Yeah, I did the Voodoo Monkey podcast, and I don't give a fuck. It's been done, and I do it, and I'm happy about that. And I'm like, I'm not in a rush to get out the episodes. I want to just talk about quality for a long time. And so there might be only 3 episodes, but you know what? In 100 years from now, some guy might come across this on the internet, and he's going to listen to this and be like, oh, this was just before its time, or these guys are genius, or this is, you wait. All my insanity, all the things that I have said all these years, somebody one day is going to, like, I know that. Like, I've been around long enough to know how the earth works.
Yeah, and like the sheer massive recordings that we have. I mean, there's hours and hours. There's like days of recording that we have done that like hasn't got uploaded because like maybe it wasn't all on the same kind of point of the Voodoo Monkeys, or it was like bad quality. Like,
but that was the practice. Crap. Now look what we've
the practice. Exactly. Like now we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's what I was trying to describe to you about Sound Dome. Same thing. It's just like look at where I was at on guitar 3 months ago when we weren't talking. Didn't end up talking for a bit there. Look at how good I was at that point.
Yeah. I'm glad that we took that time apart. Like I didn't know exactly what was going on with you and stuff, and I was kind of like depressed about it. But then eventually I realized that, and I kind of like accepted it, and that's when I made that video. That's when I updated the podcast. I was like, I'm not sad because he's not here anymore. I'm glad that he was there, and I'm gonna use that inspiration to keep going.
And when you did that,
that's when we reconnected too.
That's when I came back.
That's all that had to happen. Oh, and it felt so tremendous. It was really just another
there's
step.
Things you would blame me for that isn't me. That's you thing. You need to work through that. And I'm like, I'm not gonna stop telling you about my growth just because you think that I'm forcing this to be you. Like you need to stop getting that idea out of your brain. Like I don't want you to be me. I'm me. Fuck off.
I know. I look back on myself and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not that same kind of way anymore. Like there's been a lot of growth personally for me that's been happening by just being friends with you. Like you're such an awesome person. Like I honestly love you. Like you're such a brother, and you totally just enlighten, and you're always getting me to push it. It's so good. This is what I love the Voodoo Monkeys for, is because of
this is what it is, and that is exactly what I needed the reminder of. And believe me, I miss you too. There was a couple times I was gonna message you, and I'm like, no. I'm like, just wait, just wait, you'll know. And then I'm like, and then when I saw you post that, and I'm like, he posted a podcast. I'm like, good, and I'm like, better. But part of that was you to make your own decision. Even though I wasn't there, you're like, this, it's got to go. It has to go on. That is an important factor at this stage in my life. I have taught you these things. This is an important thing because, like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. None of us do, but I'm a little more on the unsure side than most of y'all are. So here's the deal. While you guys are fucking striving and making your future 5 and 10 year plans, I'm making my future 5 and 10 day plans if I make it that long. Every week I'm like, hey, I'm gonna come over Saturday and record a song with my buddy Jordan. I'm like, are you down? Are we good for Saturday? Some Saturdays he's not. Most of them we are. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, just gotta live till Saturday.
Yeah. That's such that you're oh, man, that's like survival, right? But like at some point that becomes I
It
don't know.
becomes
Like
something else. Yeah. So
yeah.
I get there and I'm like, well shit, what if I like this is the only chance I get to record? So like I like
That's
lay
true.
some and then like that one song that I have
Yeah.
that's like Right Fire. That was a 5-hour recording. We walked in, I wrote the song, made the beat, freaking boom, recorded it, didn't edit it, fucking done. That was that.
Yeah. I mean that kind of like mindset is the kind of shit that like I get when I listen to Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. It was just like thinking, I'm taking all those skills. I'm taking every song, every lyric I ever wrote since I was 13 years old when I listened to Eminem. Since I was like, actually, I think I was 12 when I started rapping. Right? I've taken every lyric I ever wrote at that point, and I've taken every feeling and everything I ever dreamed of, and standing in front of the mic. And I used to stand in front of my mirror pretending I was like doing music, and I'm like, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I went through all the sports, and I remember thinking, well, I could be a professional sports guy, or I could do the professional music, or it's like maybe I want to do this thing. But whatever I did, I wanted to like excel at it. I wanted to annihilate it, you know? And
Yeah.
I had all that. And then like I had the story of how I met Jordan and Braden in the band and how they came into my life and this music idea got re-sparked. And I always had pianos in my life around me. I would always play on them and tank with them when I was a kid. I had a couple now that are worth money that I wrecked as a child. You know, I wish I had. I had a Jupiter when I was younger. And a Juno. I had both those keyboards.
Like Roland's or like what are
Yeah.
those? Are those
I
like
had
collectibles?
Well, yeah, well now like I think one of them's like goes for 7 grand.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
That's a good bit of money.
yeah. So like, and I
Keyboards are
wrecked
pretty
those
cool
as
though.
a
Like I remember.
child, and they were just given to me. They weren't worth that then.
Yeah.
And it's because some famous artist uses them on a track, and then they get it.
Oh, it's that
So,
sound, people want to recreate it.
yeah, 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 yeah. And so like, freaking I had that kind of stuff when I was younger, and then all of a sudden the music just like popped up again. And like I was going through all this stuff, and I remember the acid that they give me and the band. And I remember one time playing this keyboard solo with Jordan was on his amp playing, and I was just hitting every note, and it sounded so dope. We were like soloing together, and like even though like when I missed, but when I hit, you know, like, and it was this beautiful thing. And I see this process, right? And
Hmm.
I'm recording with Jordan. And then I went through his back and forth with Jordan even. We had 6 months. And he even asked me, he's like, did you break up with that girl? Because I wasn't doing much with him and I was never hanging out. He gave up on that. He was like, whatever. Moved on with his life. I fucking got in contact with him when I had moved back to the south end of Edmonton. And when I was close by, I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, yeah, no, not with her. I got this. Like, I've lived close by now. Maybe we should hang out. He's like, okay. And so then I reunited with them, hung out with a couple band practices. But I remember that night though we went to go record. I was standing in front of the microphone, and I'm imagining when I was 12 years old and I'm writing that music in front of my computer. And we put on this headphones, and I looked at Jordan and I'm like, I can't believe I'm finally here. And both of us knew, because even our spirits knew that we were both going to be in that room one day. Both of us. And he looked at me and he
Felt the
smiled. And
felt
he's
the
just like,
destiny.
you're here. So he's like, let her rip, bud. And it freaking, I was like, did so many drugs, then I learned the facts. Everybody relax, chilling to the max. And I just like wrote that in a steady stream. Like I'm just writing this down, right? And I'm like getting this, and like I just like step up and I throw these headphones on, and I got this beat. And I remember like just raising the volume and just getting that volume, and I'm like mimicking in my mind. I'm like, yeah, that volume's the right one. And we're sitting there, and I turn, and then Jordan hits record. It goes to loop around, and I just fucking I light this fucking track up, right? And yeah, no, it was sick. And we record the first verse. We have some glitches in it, and while he's figuring out why it glitched, so I can re-record it again, right? Because we figured out we had to record in a different setting. I fucking already wrote the second verse. And then
Yep.
so freaking
Yeah.
I
I love
re-record
it
the
when
first
songs
verse.
happen that like that.
I re-record the first verse. No, check this out, and this gets crazy. I'm recording the second verse, and in my head, while I'm recording the second verse, I'm writing the third verse.
Now that's genius. That's
Yeah.
like
So
you're not
like
even like you're
I'm
like
like
living in the
I
moment
have the first
and
four
living
lines
in the
of my
next
next
moment
verse.
too.
I have the first four lines of my next verse now wrote, and I'm like still spitting like the fucking rap, and I'm like trying to get through this so I can go write this down. And then like I pick up my fucking phone and I start punching it in, and then I go over to my notebook and I write them down, and by that time they were memorized in my head, and I get the flow going again, and then I record the third or most of the third verse, and I was just like, yeah, some of the lines I had pre-written before, some of them I hadn't, and I just like made a couple like I'll pull this out here, do this thing here. Oh yeah, that lyric I wrote this one time, it fits. So I'm like supposed to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And so it's like it was this collaboration of everything in my whole life had come together into this seed that blossoms into this other thing, you know? So it's not just and like life's still going. It's still continuing. You know, so
Yeah.
imagine when I master this even more. This is still not mastered. This is just beginning of mastery. This is just the start still. It's always just the start of the start because with every end there's a beginning. So right
Yeah.
when you get to the end of something, right when you got to the end of AEDGB on fucking guitar and you got good at playing the chords, there was another level and there's another level and there's another level and you're always just new to that level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. There was a period of time I fucking almost forgot how to play guitar, but then when I went back into playing guitar, I felt like I was learning new things again and just like pushing boundaries there. But like that, I love that place of inspiration that you can get into, you know, where you're like, it's just happening. The song's just flowing and there's no end to it. You're like, there's not enough song to like write everything that I have with this inspiration, you know, and like that's some of the best songs happen like that. I love it.
You know what?
We should get into the studio and just write as much as possible. Just write it all out, you know, whatever's there.
That's what I'm
And
saying about sound though, man. And
yeah,
that's
like
what
that's
I'm
what we
saying.
could do.
Like think about that clip that we have, just the recording, like
Yeah.
just that little bit that you want to use on the podcast. That's
Yeah.
now going to be used on a podcast. That's going to exist somewheres. That
Yeah.
music is now going to exist somewheres. But guess what? It exists, and the only place it exists is on some shitty recording on your phone that you just hook. And it was never created, and it's not going to be created again. And it because we have no idea how we did it, but we just did it, and it was done. And so I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. It was very trance-like and kind of soundscapey, and I think would be very good for an intro. That's so awesome that we did that, and like I want to do more of that. More of that jamming and like adding lyrics to it and fucking like making it the music of life. Sound Dome. The sound dome of the Voodoo Monkeys.
Aside, like I was saying earlier, is essentially aside from the whole sound demon idea that I come up with this weird philosophy, is it actually the Voodoo Monkeys fucking around with their magical string wands?
Yeah, the magical string wand. It makes these vibrations, and the vibrations are kind of sacred, you know, in some ways. Some people are. Like, I mean,
when you hit certain notes, it just like right to the soul, man.
Yeah, it's fucking sacred music.
Music is sacred.
Not to everybody though. Like that, yeah, music is sacred. It comes the primal rhythm, you know, like
but that makes
going into the tribalism, right? Like or like tribes having only drums, but like the drumming being the beat, and then them singing their tribe's songs and the songs of their culture and their whole history comes out through the musical connection of all of that.
In the way music is important to a person, right? That is the same kind of language. It's a different language entirely, but it's the same structure, it's the same idea as what religion is doing. So stop hating on religion, all you religion haters out there. Seriously, because like all of these are wise people that have gone before you in life, and they have figured out things in life and tried to give you ways and words that you could grab onto, that you can use these things to try to find your true north or your true direction in life, your true purpose. This isn't like it's this big competitive, we have to kill each other over it. Like,
Yeah.
you are not special. You are special, but you are no more special than the next guy. Like Taylor here, he's my brother. I would do lots for him, but there is nothing I would do for Taylor that I wouldn't do for somebody I just met yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least 1,000 or more other people like could easily do what I'm doing. You know, there's not that much uniqueness there, but I mean there is, considering how many people there are in the world,
there is an
right?
element of
But
unique
like
because
there are other people that could be here doing this. You know, I'm
yeah.
very grateful that this is me here.
No, aside from that,
This is really like helping my life out, and like my spirituality, like you're saying, this is about me finding my spiritual home, and it's really happening. I was gonna say about this whole like people hating on religion, and maybe it's because of the way that they learned about it, that it was introduced to them, and they would try to talk to somebody about it. Maybe they had that kind of interest in it. And they're like, well, what do you mean? You know, asking a question about it, and then somebody would give them the answer that was just not right at all, because they're not the priest. They're just part of the congregation. They don't really know exactly what to say.
A pretty negative word too.
It can be. It's got a connotation to it these days, but maybe it's just because they're not into it, and because they haven't found a way to actually get into it because of how they were introduced to it.
Yeah. So
but
here's
spirituality is very. I would totally recommend it. Be spiritual.
Let me tell you something. The minute you take, spirituality and you freebase it, so like through guitar or through something like that, that's
I would say
art.
Consider omness.
That's art. Okay. The minute that I freebase something like a philosophy from that art, that's a spiritual thing. Based on how I choose to describe that philosophy, somebody decides, no, that's a religious thing. Just based on the words that you use.
Yeah, if you're talking about something that religions are based on, they're like, oh, you're going to make me come to church? It's like,
I can't believe.
No, I'm trying to make you think.
Yeah, I can't believe people like Greg does this tremendously a lot. You'll say something to him, he'll hear like 3 words out of the whole fucking thing and come up with this idea. And like a few times I'm like, what? How the hell did you think I said that? You know? And I'm like, I didn't say anything like that or come up with that. I'm like, but you come up with this idea that this is what I'm saying off those 3 words. I used to actually do that when I was with Casey. I remember that, like specifically that very thing. I would like I didn't know what to do. I was so angry and I was so like pissed off at the world all the time. Like trying to fucking speak was like a challenge, and like it made me uncomfortable if somebody was like knew more than I did. Because I knew I was smart and I did know I was genius. So it did make me uncomfortable because I had such a low level of confidence. So like I couldn't handle the fact that somebody would know something and I couldn't know, you know, like, so like it would make me so angry. And now I know what that is. I know what those things are. I faced my demons, right? But like at that time, I didn't know what those things were. And like I see that with Greg sometimes, and I think that's where it comes with religion, is like the minute I say anything that has to do with spiritual anything, he's like he laughs about it. He thinks it's a joke because he can't fucking come to terms with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean that makes the reality check so important. Like for me, I find that like the reality check is very important. Realizing who you actually are. Like there's thinking who you are, right? But then going out there and being like, okay, well, what is the reality here? You know, that's so important.
Oh man, I'm glad you made that point today, because like I know you were talking about it earlier too. Like really, that is very important. We get this idea that we are this thing when really that's
like
not.
You were saying, like thinking that you're so special and stuff, right? But like, I mean, maybe you are special in the world around you, but if you go do it somewhere else, You're gonna be just like
I-
everybody else eventually.
Why do I need to be more special than you? Why do I got to be something greater than you do?
Because you want to win, probably, because
No, I
you know what
don't.
it's like to lose.
So this is the difference. This is what, in my opinion, makes a good person from a bad person. Okay. I could say, fuck you, Taylor. I'm going to do my thing. And I'm going to succeed at it one day, and then you're not involved. Or I can be like, no, that's not right. I want as many people as possible. I'm not scared of the fact of this whole trade society, that if everybody knew how to obtain this, that we wouldn't be able to buy this and that. Like, I'm not scared of that, because if everybody knew how to do that, they would know what was right and what was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really essentially comes down to that. Like, one of the concepts you were saying, like, when we weren't talking, is you're like, I miss the hell out of this guy, but like, I was glad he's here. I need to move on with this. That is a very important thing that we need to do. And the same thing with religion. Glad you were here. You need to move on with this. You had a bad experience. This is the language. Like, the kind of like Chinese speaks Chinese. You don't laugh at their language. Don't laugh at a Christian for speaking Christian. Don't laugh at a Buddhist for speaking Buddhist. Try to understand each other relatively and be tolerant. But remember that you're ultimately all serving the same thing, this force of life.
Yeah. And having the empathy of knowing this, okay, here's a religious person and they're trying to tell me about their religion. That's because they care. Maybe not, obviously they care about the religion, but they want to share that thing that is so important to them with you. So who are you to say, no, fucking get out of my life? Like, why are you saying that to me?
They're
But like,
opening
if
up.
you've already found your kind of truth, and you already kind of know what's there, then you can say, oh, okay, I understand that you want me to, find Jesus in my heart, but I want to be a Buddhist. I'm gonna just meditate and reform myself that way.
Well, yeah, and you don't even have to say that. You don't even have to be like, well, I know
That
that
would be considerate,
you
though.
found Jesus in your heart, or what. You don't have to say that. You just have to be like, okay, this person, they're sharing with me right now, and I'm listening.
Even just that, yeah. Thank you for your words. I'm gonna go live my life now.
No, aside from that,
Or,
it
I
goes
heard
two
you.
ways. Now, let me tell you, when the
I don't even have to
conflict
thank them.
when the conflict goes and you do that and you end up fighting, right? It's because like somebody was like, oh, no, it's this, or it's this, or it's this, or it's this. A person knows it's true to themselves, they'll hold it true, and they'll always have that when they go. But if I annihilate you over it, now you feel shitty about yourself, and you might change your belief. That's not good. That is that process of evil that apparently doesn't exist. Some people actually say that.
Seems kind of naive, I guess.
Yeah. But like, it's not about that. It's about the idea of just understanding. This person has been through some in their life. I treat life like PTSD. I think PTSD is bullshit. There's no such thing as PTSD because that's life. Okay? I've had that much trauma in my life.
I think it's more like the flashbacks that happen with it. Those are real. Those happen.
Yeah. That's a real thing. I've had that much trauma in my life that PTSD and life are the exact same thing. There's no separate. And I don't think it's separate for anybody. I think we've all had lots of traumas. And when we've overcome that and somebody tells a belief and then they say, I don't want religion, you're literally telling this person, you're fucking weak. I don't give a shit what you overcame. You're pathetic. That's what you just told them. All that comes from telling a person, like, no, that's not how it is. You have no idea what they overcame to get to that point.
Yeah. And yeah, being empathetic can help.
Empathy is a big thing. Like, I'm unpacking the ideas. I'm a big fan of saying the word and it meaning the word, but like, I'm unpacking these ideas because I don't think people think about it to that point. They think, I have my opinion, you have your opinion. And that's as far as they go on that thought. And I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? It's not an opinion thing. It's that you've been through this, you've been through that. This guy's communicating it with this language, you're communicating it with this language, and you're telling him his language isn't good enough for you.
I don't know. It's empathy is one of those things that you like. It's not really that teachable. It's something
you have to understand, and it takes time. But that's the understanding of time. Over time, you're gonna learn empathy. So I learned empathy.
Every human is a human. What? Sorry.
I learned empathy later on in my life, like maybe in the last year. I've been like learning a little more of, and with my parents especially. So like, but anytime that I felt you weren't being empathetic ever, well, I didn't care because I know it's something you learn later in life. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know you're going to get there eventually. So I might point it out and start feeding you the ideas because I understand that's how growth works. Oh, I'm here. So I start giving you these little chips so that when you get to here, you know.
Yeah. That's giving me ideas to like bring a friend on with me. Word. And then just have, just like go over like who they are.
Dude, let's do that. Let's freaking, you're really good at that. But I mean, no offense to our last participants on the Voodoo Monkey podcast. You guys were awesome, but Taylor here had some structure issues.
Yeah, I had no plan.
He
But like I need to be able to not have a plan. Like I don't need to make a plan every time. I mean, conversations have to flow naturally.
Yeah, and
I got to make sure that I always stay rooted on certain things.
Taylor,
and what we're talking about.
And that took practice. And so, isn't that the art of conversation?
Yeah.
And can't you see how the art of conversation could also have a dark art to it that cuts somebody down because you can tell them that they're weak even though they beat their demons because of what they believe?
And it could be unintentional too. Like I'm thinking about the last podcast where
there's no excuse for it to be unintentional.
I know. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to think, did I at one point kind of, knock somebody down or like Cade. I was talking to Cade, right? So I mean, there was a lot of these really
I gotta watch the rest
in-depth things we could have jumped into that I maybe like brushed aside or seemed to brush aside because I just wanted to focus on what was the next step for me, which was another kind of almost umbrella thing. I kind of went from umbrella to umbrella, and whereas I could have slid down the, whatever the fuck, got into the idea more and kind of fleshed things out because there's a lot of good stuff that we could have talked about. But that just shows that, there was a lot there when I was talking with Cade, and we should get back into that and get more in depth with some of those stuff. But like, I hope he didn't think that I was like trying to brush away some of the things that he was talking about because I wanted to focus on things that I understood. So
not only is this going to be our longest podcast, this is going to be our best podcast for sure.
I think so.
I'm almost at the point where we got to wrap it up, but like, I mean, I do want to throw a couple more things in here because like when you're unpacking these ideas, right, and you're brushing these things off to the side like that is something that we all do as humans. But I've noticed it with you. I remember doing that when I was younger, so I've been like relatively patient with that because like, when you have these genius ideas, intelligence is such a big pool. And to be intelligent is like the greatest thing at one stage in life. At one time, to be intelligent is the great thing. But then another time, wisdom becomes a great thing. And then, like I said, you learn and live and learn, but then you start to learn and then live, right? Like, you need to know that, like, just because you're not interested in it, that person's interested in it. They're giving it to you, and so just because you don't think that idea matches that doesn't mean that that's how it goes. They got their way, do it your way. If you have a different idea how that goes, go do that thing, but do it in that spin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when they give you this topic, unpack that topic with them. That shows you're listening.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of saying. Like looking back, that was maybe something I could have done a little more.
With you,
but I had to be myself, so that's what I focused on mainly. Was like being myself and kind of like just reconnecting.
Yeah, and like I mean, it's hard too, but like it's practice. Look how much practice we've put into this, and this is actually starting to become something. Like think about when we would sit here. I remember sitting here thinking about what we were gonna say at one time. I don't think about what we're gonna say. We've just been going, and we're having steady conversation. We're getting better at this. We have very few points in this podcast, like very little, where there's a conflict of us fighting over the space to speak in.
Yeah. And there's some podcasts between us where it was one way. You know, I was like, okay. Oh, that's that? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. But like this time it's very back and forth. You know, you're saying something. I'm like, oh, yeah, that reminds me of this, you know, and we can actually really like have a conversation rather than it being more lecture like, which was good too.
Part of it is you have now learned that you can say things.
Well, I think that it's healthier to actually do that sometimes, you know, and so I don't get things twisted in my head, and I make sure that I actually am understanding.
Greg's only ever given the lectures because Taylor only ever sees himself as the student, but when he realizes he can speak freely, and I will, like I said, remember when I told you that one time? I was like, you know what, Taylor? I'm like, if you say something fucking worthwhile, I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's kind of hilarious. I'm glad I'm climbing out of this, you know.
I have not changed my stance on that. And you've spoke quite a bit during this podcast.
Some of it was worthwhile, for sure. Yeah.
So
that tells me we're getting
better. But don't worry, there was things I had to work on.
There's got to be the growth. The growth is happening.
I got to a point in my life where I had to be like, okay, I think Taylor's an idiot sometimes, but I'm an idiot sometimes. Yeah. So maybe I'll listen to whatever the moron is going to say.
The moron.
And then
I'm not the moron very often.
I remember there was one time you were talking to me on the phone, and I'm letting you go off on this rant because like you really were upset with me because like I taught this and I said this thing and I did that thing, and I'm like, I'm sitting there.
The habits that were starting to form. I was like telling you what was starting to form with me, and I was like, things are not healthy. Like I was like, fucking shit is making me upset. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. I'm like sitting there thinking like this, and I'm like, all right. And I'm like sitting there going, and I remember thinking, I'm like, are you done yet? Like,
yeah. And then probably cringy,
and then you got to this point, and I'm like, okay, now, like this has always been about. Let's think about peace. Let's think about patience. Let's talk about the fruits of the Spirit. What about God? Where's your direction? And again, I illuminated the path yet again. And I was like...
Yeah. I mean, the patience that you have to always do that, like, holy fuck. I can't believe the patience you have with somebody like me sometimes.
It's just like, there's always something to choose from. And so I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, well, choose then. Don't blame me for it. I'm like, just choose, you know? But like part of that's how this started, you know, like you had this dependence in the beginning for me to teach you.
Yeah, well.
But part of that was how
you very much had the path.
You know what I
like
mean?
You said, you illuminate the path. That's what you always have been doing. You connect the possibilities. And I allow your teachings to kind of flow through. And sometimes it changes things. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, no, I'm not using that idea. But you know what's funny?
My own thing there, but sometimes I do kind of like shift things or maybe just realign things. Maybe like,
you know what's funny?
Okay, I was pointing it over there. I gotta be pointing it over here. Okay, now, that's unlocked this other thing over here. I know. Oh, damn, this is fucking
Taylor,
cool.
You might change this thing, and you might change this thing. And you might even change this thing and skip over this thing and this thing. But then after you've changed like these things down here, then you might have to come all the way back over here and you change this thing and this thing, and then that thing's completed.
Yeah.
And then it's done, and then you move on even further. And that's exactly what growth is. That is how it works. So, like, even though you might not change it now, it's so funny because every belief that I disagreed with in my entire life, I have come to believe at one time or another. And now, even those beliefs that I've scrapped, I have re-picked up, and I'm like, no, this is what it really meant, because I just didn't understand what wisdom was being spoke here. This is what's being said. And then I'm trying to tell these people what's being said here, and people are like, how are you getting this? Or where does this come from? It's not just you. It's like everybody's like that. And I'm like, what do you mean, how am I getting this? I'm like, are you guys not learning? And people are like, why is it upsetting you so much? Why is this important? Why is that important? Do your thing. Who cares? Move on about it. And I'm like, this is why it's important. Because fucking if one more person tells me that, I know 90% of the world thinks that. I'm going to blow you all up, literally. Fuck, I don't care anymore.
Well, okay, well, that was good until the end.
No, yeah, it was good until the end. No, but seriously, I can't wrap my head around how stupid people can be like that. Like, I just, that's not growth. That's stupidity. Like, it's what Taylor here is stupid out of growth, and I am well respecting of Taylor because he's growing. Okay? People that don't grow, I don't have respect for you. Shut your mouths. I don't give a fuck what you do. I don't care how you hold your nuts at night. I don't care about your bullshit family life that you imagine in your head is one way when your wife is sleeping with somebody else. Like, I'm getting tired of a world where people don't want to live in the truth. Let's talk about redefine philosophy with the Voodoo Monkeys right now on this podcast. Redefine philosophy means no more bullshit philosophies. Am I honest with myself?
That's truth.
Voodoo Monkey podcast out.
That was a great ending. Fucking yeah. All right.